recording in session.
Okay, good. All right, we'll call the City of Olivet Planning and Community Design Commission meeting for April 15th, 2021 to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Rob Jerkel,
Present.
Carol Wagner,
Present.
Jody Rich, present. Richard Brophy,
Absent.
Used.
Brian Lewis,
Present.
Tim Spiegelglass,
Present.
All right, let it also be known that Carlos Trejo, the Director of Planning and Community Development, is in attendance, as well as Bridget Waters, the Administrative Assistant, as well as Council Member Missy Waldman. And am I missing anybody? I do not think so. So that being said, I think we'll go ahead and just kind of go over some procedures and kind of how we do things. We apologize for the delay in getting things started. And I just wanted to let you know, we're still doing these Zoom meetings. We're getting better and better with it each day, or each week, I should say. But we still run into a few snags here and there. So bear with us as we go through this, if we do have any issues. We will open this up for public comments, and we ask you that you withhold your comments to 3 minutes. We do want you to also, the public comments that we have at the beginning of the meeting is not related to anything that's on the item. When we go through the agenda items, there'll be a presentation conducted by a member of the staff and a chance for people on the council to ask questions, go over things. We'll probably bring in the petitioner as well to go over things. And then we'll also ask for public comments on those specific items. We do ask you to keep your comments limited to 3 minutes to kind of respect the time for everybody here, and just to make sure we can get everybody's voice heard. Okay, that being said, it looks like we do have a pretty full agenda item today. So I will like to open it up for public comments right now for anything that is not included on the agenda item. Carlos?
Chairman, I'm aware of one item that I had emailed earlier this afternoon to the commission members.
Yes.
Ms. Rickard, are you on? All right, and I'm going to promote her to panelist. All right, Ms. Rickard, if you can state your name and at least street, and you got your camera and audio, it looks like up and running. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Trejo, Commissioner Wagner, and commission members. I'm Leslie Ricard. I live at 676 North Price Road, and I had two different points that I wanted to talk about quickly. Number one, it had to do with the discussion regarding bamboo. And I just wanted to say a final word about that. And I wanted the PCDC to know that while I've had bamboo in my yard for more than 20 years and have kept it managed, I chose to plant it in a different area a few years ago for several reasons. First, it was to stop the erosion as a result of poison my neighbor was spraying on my side of her fence after she had planted a few plants there, and despite my asking her not to. The poison, therefore, then ended up killing all the ground cover, leaving weeds and erosion. The other reasons were about privacy and nuisance dogs. Since their property is 4 feet higher than mine, when they added a large deck to the back of their house, I would have needed a 12-foot fence, which would have been difficult for the variance, to regain some privacy. And 2 of their 3 dogs were always on the deck barking at me, as well as running back and forth against their fence and barking at me and my dog whenever we were in our yard. We could never be outside when the dogs were out, and we have spent many years filing complaints, but to no avail. But the other issue that I also wanted to discuss tonight was relevant to the discussion that you're going to have later about residential stormwater requirements. After a large room addition was added to that same home, the city neglected to enforce the requirement that the homeowner replace downspout covers that moved roof water, which was then doubled in size to the back of their property. Instead of down the 4-foot drop between their yard and my yard. At the beginning of construction, when I noticed that they had been removed, I contacted the city in writing to ensure that it would happen. It did not, and the situation was made worse because additional downspouts were now also facing my property. As a result, I continue to suffer substantial damage and financial losses due to mitigation. Damage to my property included heirloom items I thought were safely stored on top shelves being destroyed, and from the water rushing in through the windows from those window wells. The window wells have collapsed, and I've spent thousands of dollars creating a lovely dry river bed now to help catch as much water as possible that runs down the hill from their property. None of this should have happened, particularly the financial expenses that are still ongoing. As a result of what happened, I'm eager for the city to help me now and to fix this situation while also addressing this problem on a broader scale due to new construction all around the city. I believe one way to address the issue is to update the relevant building codes to include elevation between properties, not just the linear distance between houses. For example, in my situation, it wouldn't have been such a big runoff issue if my property had been leveled to theirs. I realize the Price Road project is years away, but I'm hoping that a reassessment of the drainage issues along the street would be helpful in resolving water flow onto properties. To that end, the same type of hard curbs found elsewhere in the city, priced by Chevy Chase, Steelman, etc., instead of the U-shaped design that allows water from the street to jump over and down my driveway and front walk, might also be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we'll have staff administration kind of look into some of these items. And,
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much. Carlos, do we have any other comments?
Bear with me 1 second, Chairman, and let me get this. I do not see any, but if I can just ask for 1 second here too.
No worries.
If there are any other comments, if you can show your hand, there's a little icon at the lower part of the your monitor on Zoom. And Chairman, everyone I see is pretty much on a specific agenda item. So I think.
Okay. And if there are any additional comments, we can open up some comments at the end too, but leave a comment if you don't mind. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to old business. We'll go to item A. This is 1157 Indian Meadows Drive. Petition review is a community design and concept storm water management plan review for a residential addition. The petitioner is Jim Bileski with Jim Bileski Architects. Property owner is Laura and Jabare Robinson. I apologize if I mispronounced that. So thank you. Carlos, go ahead.
Bear with me 1 second so I can have Chairman, this petition was at our meeting on March, in which the commission authorized approval of a residential addition with a request that staff work with the petitioner and the architect to extend the windows that were on the elevation that you see before you on the upper right-hand corner, upper left-hand corner. In discussions with the petitioners and the architect, there were some specific design goals that they were trying to do and had concerns about the changes of the windows. We did provide a copy of the elevation articulation from the Olivet Residential Design Guidelines, and they wanted to speak to the commission regarding the design. At the meeting on the 15th, only the architect was in attendance on behalf of the property owners. They are here today. And again, they'd like to address the commission regarding the elevation before you here on here. The concern that was expressed by staff was the the amount of exposed siding without any articulation on the addition portion. The commission, after having discussions with the architect who wanted to minimize the amount of window based on his client's guidance, was willing to increase the height of the overall height of the windows themselves. After discussions with the property owner, they would like to address elevation articulation differently and ask if they could use materials, which is permitted through the guidelines. And that being said, I wanted to bring this back to the commission for discussion along with the property owner.
Okay, so no changes were made in those windows, is that correct?
They'd prefer to keep the window, the width of those windows in terms of their height the same,
Okay.
but to incorporate material changes as a means to do the articulation.
And doing that with the stucco, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. Does anybody on the commission have any direct questions for Carlos at this time before we bring on the petitioner? Seeing none, Carlos, maybe we can bring the petitioner on. And then they can discuss that.
Sure. Ms. Robinson, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And then again, if you can have your mic and your video on. And then I wasn't sure.
Jabari is here too.
Okay. I'm trying to find him in the list and okay, there we go.
Thank you.
And Mr. Robinson, you should be transferring over to.
All right, sorry about that. I was talking on mute. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you all giving us an opportunity to kind of talk through a little bit about the design idea for the windows. So I just explain kind of the concept and the reasoning for the placement of the windows. Is that would that be good? Okay.
Perfect, perfect.
Excellent, thanks. So the idea of the addition is more of a mid-century modern addition, which goes with the theme of our home. The placement of the windows was not necessarily for the purpose of being able to view out or have somebody view in, but more so to capture sunlight and sunsets as well. It plays right into the addition and the other windows that are on the west and south wall. So our intent again was not to be able to see out of them or to have anybody see in, but yet more so to be able to capture light, as that is a big open area and space. As you can see, we're looking to get as much light as possible. As well, if you're looking at the north wall, if you're looking at the actually down the home directly next to it is rather close, and the one behind that is pretty close as well. And the view isn't the best. However, we love our neighbor Paul, and he does a great job of keeping his yard immaculate. The preference to not be able to see our neighbors would be great, and it's considering that those windows are going to be directly in our master bathroom bedroom. A little privacy would be all the wiser. So that's our reasoning for wanting to keep the window height as tall as it currently is, and the width as well.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody on the commission have any questions that they want to address to the property owners? Go ahead, Carol. Carol, looks like you might be muted. Sorry, guys. Carol, did you have any luck?
Carlos is working on it.
Oh, well,
Hear me?
you came in. Yeah, that sounds great. You did a great job.
Okay. Um, so as I understand it, you're going to use stucco on the elevation instead. I was wondering if you could, if that is true, and if you could describe what you're intending there.
Sure. Stucco would be used on the bottom portion of the addition. That is going to be the material that will be carried around to the other sides of the addition as well. Stucco is, like I was saying before, more of a mid-century modern and a material that's favored by my wife as a real estate agent who really prefers that look. I think it goes along with the crisp white of the home that we currently have. The classic siding will be carried along to make sure that the addition and the existing property is distinct. And then like I said, because of the stucco being used on the other portion of the addition, we chose that as a material that we feel would satisfy both the needs of my beautiful wife and her wants, and as well of the design that we've come up with. So we like that material a lot. And I think that what it will do is not overwhelm the addition with stucco, but introduce it gradually from the viewable sides of our neighbors.
Tim, did you have a question?
Yes. First, I think the stucco idea is really good. I think that ties in the backside of the house very well. But my question is, you think we could make those windows just a little bit bigger on there? I mean, even if you made them a foot taller, you know, you'd still be way above any furniture or anything like that, and not have a view into your neighbors. Maybe there's a compromise that we can make on that.
Yeah, so I'm curious because I'm still learning this process. If we kept the bottom of the window at the same height level and increased the top of the window, is that what you're suggesting? Closer to the roof line?
I would actually consider just bringing it down, keeping the top the same level, and then bringing it down, and you'd still be 3 foot, you'd still be 7'6" off the floor with those windows.
Yeah, and I think that again, if you think about the mid-century modern, the clear story window, right? We're essentially trying to serve the same purpose as one of those. I think that when you use a larger window, it kind of takes away from the sleek mid-century modern feel that we're going for with that home. So that was one reason why we chose to use a thinner, more modern, mid-century modern window framing that isn't so large. Because again, not to see out or see in, but because that is a master bedroom, privacy is definitely going to be something that we would like to maximize. And I think the larger the window, the less privacy that you lose.
I'm personally fine with the windows heights the way they are right now, especially with the addition of the stucco. I do think that helps break it up and gets rid of that, you know, the large mass of siding. How does everybody else on the commission, feel? If anybody else has any differing views, but please let us know.
Chairman, I agree with you.
Good. Anybody else have any questions or comments for the owners? Carlos, is there anybody in the public that has a specific comment on this item?
If anybody would like to speak to the commission regards this petition, if you can show a raise of hands, and I'll transfer you over. Give me a couple of seconds, Chairman. Okay, Chairman, I think I can safely say that there is nobody else
Good.
regarding this petition.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I would like to entertain a motion if someone would like to make that.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the petition for community design review and concept stormwater management plan for a residential addition at 1157 Indian Meadows Drive is presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated March 18th, 2021, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made by Brian Lewis. Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Chairman, before seconding that, and I apologize, Mr. Lewis, but that should be the April 15th date.
No, good
March,
point.
yeah, I guess March was the original one. So, yep, I'll modify that to say April 15th.
Good. Motion's been made, and Tim, I think you seconded it?
Yes,
You were
sir.
first on the draw. And motion's been seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Commissioner Rich,
Approve.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Chairman Jurgel,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously. Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, I'm going to transfer you back as attendees, and feel free to
Thank you.
accept guests or so.
Thank you
very much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Bear with me 1 second, Chairman.
No problem. Okay, while Carlos is doing that, well, I'll wait for Carlos.
And Chairman, I'll ask, it's not clear. I think we're having a little bit of audio problems. Just going to let Ms. Wagner know to speak as close as you can to the microphone. I'm not sure. I can hear myself, and I think our speakers are working, but it seems like sometimes it gets pretty low. So let us know if you can't hear us.
Okay, good. And Carol, if you can wave too, if you really have something you need to say and we can't hear you, let us know. Yeah, perfect. Okay, we'll move on to old business item B, 9661 Old Bottom Road, related to the Old Bottom Elementary School, and this is the east parking lot modifications. I think there's a new revised set. Carlos?
Chairman, we discussed this during our discussion comments at our meeting on March 15th. The representatives for doing the improvements for Old Bottom School wanted to come back and remodify the east parking lot. And what you see before you in the slide is the east parking lot configuration and those striped sections within that parking lot. The previous plans had the traditional 6-inch curb with the areas that are hashed, either mulched or cemented. And these were approved last year. They wanted to come back and modify those and remove the 6-inch curbs that are required by code within the interior part of the parking lot. And within our code, there is a process that the commission has authority to grant an exception or a variation subject to the request. We had some discussion, and the purpose of the removal was that the east parking lot somewhat served as a multi-purpose surface area. So while it takes in the parking of the vehicles during the school time, also the drop off and pickup during the morning and afternoon hours, sometimes it will serve as a hard surface play area, and also for other activities at the school that a hard surface area is necessary in there. The commission had some discussions, and they requested back at March 15th that representatives of the school be in attendance, because there was a couple of questions that I couldn't answer directly based on the information I had. So that being said, Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding to what I just identified or from the March 15th meeting. But we do have several representatives from the school district regarding their development team that are here to speak.
Carlos, I got one quick question, and the text that says proposed, replace proposed landscape islands with stripes, it's only pointing to 2 of those islands. Is this changed? Are they looking to replace all of the islands or only just those 2?
No, it is all the islands. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. I think it would be, I do remember we had some questions about the traffic control issues and how that was going to be handled, so if we can bring on some members of their team,
Absolutely.
that'd be great.
I have Mr. Noonan, who's the facilities director for the Ladue School District. I'm going to bring on, and then Mr. Keisker with the architecture team and construction team with the schools. And gentlemen, if you can just make sure you undo your mics and have your videos, would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Rick Keisker. I'm with Ittner Architects. We got Mike Noonan with us tonight too, as well, from the school district. I actually have a couple PowerPoint slides. Are we okay if I shared my screen?
Yes, just give me 1 second and then I should be able to allow you. All right, Mr. Keisker, you should be set, sir.
Okay, I'll go ahead and try this. Share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Sir.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I know this was, as Carlos mentioned, this was discussed back in the planning and zoning meeting in March. So we just wanted to kind of explain a little bit more of the reasoning for this request and kind of explain the differences of this east parking lot as it's existing compared to what the proposed lot is. So this is the Google Earth image of the site. This is the east parking lot that we're talking about. And right now it's a parking lot that has parking for 65 cars. It's used as a play surface during the day. And the other important function that's kind of driving this whole request is the whole student drop off and dismissal process. This is where cars go in and out, as everyone probably knows, to drop off kids and pick up kids in after school. And there's only one way in and out. The other thing is, so this is a play area. So during the day, this is, even though there's 65 spaces here, there's not too many cars, if any car at all, that really even park on this lot because it's used as a play surface. Most of the parking is actually happening over in this west lot. So the other thing I'll just point out while I got this slide up here is that it's about 23,000 square feet, this parking lot. And then we have gone out a few times and observed the whole dismissal process. And when we were out there, we observed that there is about 40, maybe a little bit more cars to get on the lot before they start letting cars off. So that's kind of the capacity of how many cars. And the school has gone through a pretty intensive process of kind of down to a science of getting this whole dismissal process to work, and done a really good job at that. So we're just trying to improve that as part of this project. So this is the overall site plan that was approved, and this is the east parking lot we're talking about. Again, this will be used for car pickup and drop off, but we're also picking up the front area, which is currently used for buses because now we have buses going in the back. So we're improving this by, we got about 15 cars that can come in the front here for pickup or drop off. And then we got about another 25 cars that can wrap around here. So you got about 40 cars total. And then you got the internal lot itself that cars could be brought on for pickup and drop off. So there's parking, the number of parking spaces is a little bit lower, but then we also are using this lot for dismissal, but we're not using it so much for play because we're improving other areas of the site. We're adding play here. We're expanding the play area in the north end here. And then the gym itself, we're tripling the size of what the existing gym is. So there could be some play that happens on the east lot, but that's not really the primary purpose. The primary purpose is going to be really the parking and then the whole drop off and dismissal process. So one of the reasons that we want to remove these islands is just to really allow the school to get even more cars on here. And these islands that were in here, it just make it more difficult. We looked at several different scenarios about how you could bring cars in here, and the islands just kind of get in the way. And we're looking at ways you could stack more cars. If we can take these islands out, it would allow the school to bring cars in a different direction or kind of test out what works best and give them the most flexibility to get more cars onto the site safely and just improve the overall traffic situation for drop off and dismissal. So that's in a kind of a quick summary. That's kind of the rationale behind our request. And we just appreciate you guys looking at this and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks for that explanation, Rick. Appreciate it. Does anybody from the commission have any direct comments for Rick? Go
Commissioner?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Brian.
Yeah, I think I'm in favor of giving them the flexibility. I don't think having the islands or not having the islands impacts. If anything, it's going to improve the traffic, as to the point, it gives more flexibility. If they decide a different route through the parking lot makes more sense. And then for future events like Spring Fling or other things, just having that there. I do think there was a question we had around safety to stopping cars, where they're going to be, any blockades at all to stop, the risk of a car going into the building or something like that. And maybe you can address that possibly.
Yeah, as far as the building, there is a canopy that's being built here, and then we do have. It's kind of hard to see. In fact, it doesn't really show up on this plan, but we do have several bollards that are kind of running along the curb here, just to protect students here. We got a pretty generous. We got a 15-foot wide sidewalk here, but we're just putting the bollards there just to have another layer of protection for students in this area.
Yeah, I think that was our answer. And you never know, somebody slips on the gas or something like that
Yeah.
to have that breaker. So
Yeah,
okay.
we were particularly kind of concerned in this area, so that's why we definitely wanted to add those bollards.
Makes sense.
And I assume, Rick, that, all of the, in the past, I've seen them use cones quite a bit and have a lot of people out there for traffic control. So I'm assuming that is going to be continued,
Yeah, I believe it is, and Mike, you can, if you want to chime in and add to anything on that, but I believe the school is planning on managing that similar to how they're doing it now.
Exactly. And if we are allowed to do this, just give us the opportunity to figure out the best way to route that traffic in the most safest way too. I mean, because we can look at it from a plan perspective and say, yeah, that's going to work. But we really don't know until we get the people out there. So there will be the same effort with the number of people out there to help direct traffic and cones and barricades, whatever it takes to get it done the best. We realize the issue that this has caused on Old Bonham Road in the past, and we just want every opportunity to make sure that we fix that as part of this overall project.
Good. Thanks, Mike. Is there anybody else on the commission that would like to?
Karen?
Go ahead, Karen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm all in favor of giving the school district some flexibility, but I am with my parents living right across the street on Downey Lane. They've experienced firsthand the mess this creates every day, and particularly when it's raining. And I really appreciate the things that are being proposed that will help alleviate that situation. And what I absolutely want, what I wanted to be sure of is that by allowing the school district flexibility with regards to the layout of how they arrange cars on the site, that as an effect of that, they don't cause backups along Old Bonham, which is, I'm sure, not going to be as bad as it is now, but I'm trying to get rid of it altogether.
Mhm.
It's a huge hassle for anyone who has to drive through there. And I'm not quite sure how to accomplish that by allowing the district the kind of internal flexibility that's asking for?
Sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick and Mike, but the idea is if you didn't have those islands there, you could possibly put 3 lanes in, to basically move more cars off of the street. Is that the intent?
You could do that. We were looking at different ways you could bring cars in and like have them stack in these, in these areas. If you can see my cursor, these islands are kind of tight, just making these turns, and it just, again, taking the islands out, you could run cars in different directions. There's probably a number of different ways that it could be done, and just taking those out just really allows the school the flexibility to figure out what is the best and safest way to do that.
And I think one of my concerns, if you look at the configuration now, as you're pulling through, you have to pull in front into these spots and you get to back out of those. So I think one of the things that we're looking at is trying to figure out a way to stack cars to where there's no backing up in parking lots like that, where, we absolutely do not intend to have kids running through the parking lot while there's cars there, understand that, but there's always that chance that it could walk back there. And that's another thing that we're trying to look at. So, and the other issue too is that we'll be offloading some of the cars that are usually stacked through the front entrance too, to do parent pickup or kid pickup there as well. So, car pickup drop off in the front of the building we're hoping is going to help that as well. But I really do understand what you're saying about the traffic in Old Bonham, and that has been a primary focus of this whole project since day one, as far as the traffic flow and the way we're laying this out.
And I'll just add, I did mention earlier that, this lot is, it's bigger than the existing lot. And like we've been talking about, we're gaining this area in front is a pickup and drop off. And with this curb cut that was granted back in the fall, there's more ways to get cars in and off the site than there is right now. Right now, there's just that one curb cut that, it's kind of the bottleneck, if you will. So we're, with all these improvements, we're really, that should be improved from the existing situation.
And I think from a safety perspective too, the outlet from Stacy Park, we've aligned that with ours. So there's not going to be that staggered type stop sign. That was, I think the main focus on that was from a safety perspective too, as well, that where we have a very simple 4-way stop there versus what we had before.
I just have one. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah. I am in favor of allowing the school district some flexibility with regard to the ultimate design of this lot. But I am still very concerned about, the traffic engineers have said this is a good way to park this. And if our ultimate goal here is to safely allow the kids to be picked up and get taken off the site, I'm concerned also about the neighboring property owners and the people who have to drive past this school during, whenever there's these huge backups. And I'm just looking for a way that we can indeed give you the kind of flexibility that you're asking for, but at the same time, make sure that the community at large interests are also protected. And I'm not hearing how we can resolve those two.
Commissioner, I guess, and Carlos, maybe you can answer this. I think if I'm correct, what we're approving or looking at is just the removal of the islands, right? I mean, Carol, I think you make a very, very valid point in terms of trying to understand how we minimize the impact of Old Bonham. But I think, to me, they're two separate issues. Approving the islands being removed seems like we all in agreement for that, but it may be coming back to understand, regardless of what the flow is, how the Old Bonham is less impacted is what you're looking for, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Right, but what I'm hearing them say is they want to remove the islands in part because they want to be able to rearrange the parking on the site should they find another way to do it. And I'm all for that. if they can make it more efficient. But from the a community-wide perspective, I also need to be sure that anyone using Old Bonham Road and the property owners adjacent to it and across the street, et cetera, are protected. And the traffic engineers have told us that this layout will work and that will help accomplish this. Well, I don't know that another layout would do the same thing. It might be good for the school district, but I don't know that it's gonna help the wider community issue that's a concern. And I am
Rick,
very, very, very concerned about that.
Rick and Mike, I mean, did you guys go over this with your traffic engineers or your civil guys, you know, and are they in agreement?
We did go over this with our civil engineer, Stephen. He's actually on the call as well. We looked at several different layouts for this east parking lot. I mean, we're kind of obviously limited by the property that the school owns. You know, there's only so many area that we can go here. But like I mentioned earlier, I tried to articulate is that we're bringing more cars onto the site than what's occurring right now. You're bringing 40 cars, maybe a little bit more on the site right now. We have stacking just for 40 cars. So what's going to happen, I didn't mention this earlier, is that teachers will during the day park around the perimeter of the lot, and then they're going to leave some portion of the middle lot open specifically for this dismissal and drop off process. And the goal is to get more cars on the site safely and quickly, just to speed up that whole process from what is occurring right now.
I think that maybe the traffic engineer can help, but I'm hearing what Carol's saying, and I understand better at least, is that with the medians, it sounds like the traffic engineer had said it will significantly help the Old Bonham issue. By removing them, does it accomplish the same? And I guess Carol, and I hear what you're saying. Another thought I would say though is that even if they remove them, if they find that having them there is what they need, we could put cones there or something like that if that's the right pattern. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, you're asking me or somebody else?
Well, I guess I was clarifying with Carol that I capture that,
Oh,
but I
sorry.
do think it's worth hearing from the traffic engineer if this new layout would possibly work as well, or be just as effective, I guess, is what the commissioner was asking as well.
This is Stephen Tolley, Civil Design. I'm the civil engineer on the project. I think if we were to remove the islands, the major benefit of this is that, the way we lay it out now, we're increasing the amount of capacity on paper, for dismissal purposes or anything like that. The only concern that the school district has is that if there's a situation that arises on site, not having islands there allows them flexibility to rearrange the cars as needed, given the amount of, if it's a rain day, they can probably organize the cars on a lot in a different orientation to, make the pickup process a smoother process if they're going to deal with more cars that day compared to just a normal pickup day on good weather. And, by having the islands there in the parking lot, we're kind of really reinforcing traffic patterns around the parking lot and kind of locking them in. And if we have those islands in place, we're kind of, this is the way it's going to work, and it will improve it, but it kind of limits the amount of possible improvement as you can, massage the whole dismissal process and everything as they work with it, as they get used to the new layout and work with it, modify it as needed in order to make it a much more fluid working machine at that point. So.
Well, and if I could add, I'm sorry.
Chairman, I would much rather see the school district come back to us with an alternative design that they need flexibility to achieve, just because we absolutely have an obligation to our community to make sure that we're helping to alleviate what is now a terrible situation. And
But I think, Carol, I think the issue is they're trying to use this during the day as a parking lot. And then at, drop off and pickup, use it as a different, function. So that's why they need the flexibility of not having the islands there. There'll still be marking, there, But then they can override those markings with cones and different things like that to give them that flexibility to help improve. I think if we ask them to redo this plan, it's going to limit the goal of having to be able to use it both ways.
Mr. Chairman, I understand why they want some flexibility. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. And I don't need to go through it again, but I really do understand that. But I am absolutely committed to making sure that this problem that the community has suffered with for many, many years is alleviated as much as possible. And if they determine that they need to use an alternative internal design, I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't negatively impact the traffic on Old Bottom Road. And I don't see that we have any control over that if we just give them a blank check.
I honestly don't see them being a blank check, and I also see these are significant improvements, to help alleviate that issue. So I mean, I think we might be I don't know what you're looking for. But I agree that they're limited in space and size. Do you have any thoughts of ideas of what could be improved? If you do, please share them. But otherwise,
Do I?
we lost your mic now.
Okay. Do I personally know? No, I do not know offhand. I'm not a traffic engineer, and I certainly wouldn't want non-traffic engineers focusing on the redesign in the absence of understanding of how this is going to impact the traffic along Old Bottom Road. And
So it sounds like you want a traffic study.
If that's what it takes. I don't have a solution here. I mean, you're asking me for a solution. I don't have one. I understand what the school district is trying to do here. I'm concerned about their impact off campus. And I understand that they need they're asking for the flexibility, and I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I need to make sure that my job is fulfilled, and that's to make sure that there aren't off-site negative impacts. And I don't have any way, and I don't think the commission has any way of assessing that if we just give them a blank check and say, do whatever.
But we had already approved the parking lot with the islands, correct, Carlos?
That is correct.
So again, I think the question in front of us is, are we okay without the islands? And we have a traffic engineer on the call. So I'm tempted, I guess, to the traffic engineer, I apologize if I forget your name. Does removing the islands decrease the ability to pull cars off of Old Bottom?
Yes. It provides more room and more maneuvering space on the parking lot to pull more cars off Old Bottom. Currently, right now, the way the parking lot's laid out is the maximum amount we can get in that area within the requirements of the code of requiring islands at the end of each bank of parking or anything like that. By removing those banks of parking, we can get additional cars to stack in the middle of the parking lot area for dismissal. And it just allows them more flexibility to try to, how they handle their dismissal process instead of having it be, as regimented as it is right now. The cars have to be exactly within the islands and in the parking stalls. And also, if there's, like the school districts brought up other concerns, like if a car, currently the way this is laid out, if there's a car in the lot and stacked in the middle of the parking lot, if it stalls out or has a problem or anything and can't move, well, that's going to really gum up the works for the entire dismissal process, depending on where it stalls out at. And just not having the islands there locking in the layout would allow them flexibility to maneuver around such an issue that may crop up during dismissal.
So I think the key thing I heard is that by removing the islands, it actually improves the ability to get cars off. And that to me, I think, Chairman, is what we're approving, correct?
Correct. All right, maybe we can do something like this to help appease everybody on this. I mean, maybe if we can get some assurances from the school district that, you know, if there's still a negative impact after these improvements are done, that you guys could, you know, put together a traffic study, you know, to review this, to see if there's anything else or what else can be done to improve the situation to avoid any negative impacts.
Yeah, as a district representative, I feel we can go ahead and do that, yeah. If there's a negative impact, go ahead and start the traffic study at that point.
Yeah, Carol, would you feel comfortable with that?
I would. I think that's a good solution.
Good, good, good. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments related to this item? Carlos, can you check also to see if there's any other public comments related to this?
Chairman, yes, I will. If there's anybody that has any comments regarding to this petition item, if you can show your hand on the lower part of your screen or monitor, you should be able to access a hand to show hands. And Chairman, I see none.
Good, good. Okay, unless there's any further discussion that's needed, I would like to entertain a motion. Remember to unmute.
I'll make it if I can, if Carlos, if you can re-present maybe on the screen. Let me just find it here.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I found it. Motion to authorize a variation to section 400.1430.b so as to allow this striped islands?
Correct, islands.
Yeah, with the east parking field as presented before the commission for the proposed interior renovation, addition, and site plan improvements to the Old Bonham Elementary School, addressed as 9661 Old Bonham Road, is presented and noted within the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated April 15, 2021, subject to any staff conditions noted here.
Ryan, will you also amend that to include that additional requirement?
Amended to, if there is a impact to the number of cars on Old Bonham, that a traffic study will be conducted to look at options to improve.
And let's also, just for clarity, negative impact.
Yep, negative
Okay.
impact.
Okay, motion's been made by Brian Lewis. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And it's been seconded by Jody Rich. Carlos, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approve.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Chairman Drigo.
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously 5-0. Chairman, while we have Mr. Noonan and Mr. Keisker, real quickly, if you wouldn't mind giving the commission just an update on what the schedule will be. Today we received the permit. Well, of course, the bond issue was passed earlier this month.
Yep.
And then earlier today we received the building permit plans and site improvement plans for permit review today. And if you could just kind of give us a short schedule of what you anticipate.
Do you want to answer that, Mike? You want me to? Or?
I'll let you go ahead, Rick.
Okay. Yeah. So the project is bidding right now. SM Wilson is the construction manager at risk. So we're going through that process, and that'll kind of go through the end of May. So we should have everything resolved by June 1. And I think the plan is to start construction at that point over the summer. And it's this project is basically a 2-year project completing in 2023. And there's obviously a couple different phases. There'll be the additions that'll get constructed, and then some of the renovations, internal work will happen after the additions are constructed.
Greatly appreciate it.
Well, it's very exciting. We're excited that it passed and looking forward to it. These
we are
improvements
too.
for the school.
There too.
Good, good. Well, thank you very much, guys, for being on. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bear with me 1 second, Chairman, as I kind of.
No worries.
All right, Chairman, we should be set now for the next agenda item. Thank you.
Good, good. We'll move to old business item number C, and this is 9398 Olive Boulevard. It's the Firestone Development. Petition type is Community Design Review, which is an amendment to the approved plans related to the monument sign. Petitioner is Todd Guringer, Senior Manager with Signate Solutions. Property owner is currently under contract with GBT Realty. Carlos?
Chairman, before you, again, this petition was, I believe, approved last year, if not early 2019, excuse me, late 2019, for redevelopment of the parcel address is 9398 Olive Boulevard. That is the current Olivet 66 service facility at the southeast corner of Gilman Road and Olive Boulevard. It is being developed for a Firestone facility, which has gone through the commission review process. In that, during the initial plans, they didn't identify monument sign along Olive. Late last week, they had approached me as they're getting close to closing on the property, that their tenant would like to place a monument sign as illustrated here on the right-hand corner of the slide. In there, and under chapter 415, which is our sign regulations, any monument sign does require community design review through the plan commission. And it was one of these unfortunate incidents. It was shown in the initial approval, it wouldn't be an issue. I made the assumption it was going to be along one of the retaining walls in there. And it wasn't. They're looking to place a standalone monument sign. We'd like the ability to kind of work with the petitioner for the final placement and even some of the design. Those are kind of governed by code. But what I do need authorization from is the commission to allow for a monument sign on this property. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions. We also have a representative from GBT Realty.
Is the proposed placement though in red?
That is correct. At least for the time being, it is in red. They're trying to get it on the western side of the site, but due to some of the swells and landscaping, we're trying to finalize where the specific location will be.
And just one quick question. I think the freestanding walls that are kind of on either side of it might block the view.
Correct. Well, and that's something they'll take a closer look at to see if there are opportunities either to shift those walls or integrate the walls with the signage.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions for Carlos? Seeing none, Carlos, do we have a representative from the petitioner that would like to speak?
I'm going to promote Bob Gage with GBT Realty. Bob, you should be on. I can see you.
Thank you, Carlos. Mr. Chair, yes, we are planning to place that monument sign roughly in the location that we're showing on this plan here. You did have a question regarding the height of those decorative walls on either side. Those decorative walls are actually 2'6" high, which is just a little bit higher than what the base is of this sign. So I think we're in pretty good shape as far as visibility, as far as that is concerned. So it's just a matter of working with the existing swale that we have, the grading on site, and some of the landscaping And I believe it will be visible from Olive Boulevard.
Good, good. Well, are you going to also look to have a sign on Dealman, or is you're already going to have a sign above the entrance door?
No, sir, I believe the signage on the building will take care of Dealman.
Yeah, yeah.
The retailer did request specifically to have a monument sign on Olive. And this, in our assessment, seems to be the best location for it.
That sounds good. To me, it looks like a nice looking sign. So,
Great, thank you.
does anybody else in the commission have any specific comments, for the representative? Seeing none, Carlos, do we have any public comments?
If there's anybody that would like to speak in regards to this petition, if you can show your hand. I don't believe so, but just give me 1 minute.
No worries. That's good. While we wait, I do have a question as to when are we going to start breaking ground on this?
We're ready right now.
Good.
We're actually chomping at the bit to get this started. We're just finalizing a few things with the seller and with the retailer. Obviously, we've got to get this signage location worked out with Carlos and the city. But yes, we're sitting on go. We're ready to go.
Great. Sounds great.
Yes, sir.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Do you own the land yet, sir?
We are equitable owners of the property. We are scheduled to close. I believe we're just weeks away from closing on the property.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
When is the closing anticipated? Do you know?
I believe we are 2 weeks out.
Good.
I don't have the exact date for you, but I can get that for you if you need it.
It would be great if you could update Carlos. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Yes,
Good,
sir. We will.
Carlos, any public comments? I doubt it.
No, sir.
Good. All right. Unless there's any further discussion, I would entertain a motion that's on the screen.
Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'll motion to authorize the placement of a monument sign along Olive Boulevard at 9398 Olive Boulevard, proposed Firestone Complete Auto Facility, is presented and noted within the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated April 15, 2021, subject to staff conditions noted herein, and I'd like the condition to be added with flexibility on the final location and design specifications.
Thank you, Carol. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner and seconded by Brian Lewis. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Motion to approve. Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Gage.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Carlos, we will
Thank
be
you.
in touch.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll move on to new business. And this is item A. And for this particular item, we're going to have to close our meeting, but then also enter into a public hearing procedure. Okay, so no motion is required for this, but we just need to specify that when we do this. So this public hearing is related to Birdie Lane subdivision of Old Bonham Road vacation plot. The description is a vacation of 137 square feet of Old Bonham right of way. Petitioner is Jeffrey Simon with the Sterling Company. The property owner is the city of Olivet. Carlos?
Chairman, this item was introduced at our at our March 18th meeting, informing the commission that part of the preliminary subdivision plat that the commission approved had identified and had a listed staff condition about vacationing of the portion of right-of-way along Old Bonham Road near the end of the existing driveway that leads to what you see here on the slide titled Long Acres Drive. There is a small bump out in here. It's a remnant piece. I'm hoping you can see my mouse here. And here, what we'd like to do is just straighten out that right of way and relinquish this piece from the Old Bonham Road public right of way and transfer that to the proposed Birdie Lane subdivision. In accordance with our chapter 405, our subdivision regulations, a public hearing is required. It's one of the few public hearings that is required to be before the Planning and Community Design Commission. Most other hearings are taken by the city councils. This is one of the few that you have. We have issued notifications to adjoining property owners. We have also posted a public hearing notice in the city's appointed paper of record, which is the St. Louis Countian, in there. So in the next part of the process, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions. You have copies of the vacation proposal. I'm going to change slides here to kind of show it a little bit more specifically. It's approximately 137 square feet, located at the southwest corner of the property. Address is 9411 Old Bonham Road. You have the legal description, and essentially all that would do is transfer that property into private ownership, and then it will get consolidated in the final plat for the Birdie Lane subdivision. It'll no longer exist. It'll be part of another lot and maybe road right away. Be glad to answer any specific questions on that, Chairman. And again, going through the procedures, we'd like to enter a couple of items into the record, which is part of the formal process of a public hearing.
No, that'd be, the only question I had was the historic use, why it was even in Olivet's ownership to begin with. Do you know the history of that?
From my perspective, the best response I can give is that driveway apron, for some reason, because this driveway extends on both of these properties, that's a remnant piece of some type of apron that was left out.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes complete sense. Does anybody have any specific comments or questions for Carlos? Carlos, I don't see any. So do you need to enter these items into record?
Yes, and these are necessary to ensure that the proper public hearing was conducted and that specific documents related to the request and the property grounds were entered into the record. So it gets a little bit formal here, but bear with me. So if I may enter the petition for the preliminary subdivision plat, along with the plat documents that were submitted dated September 14th, 2020. The staff reports that were dated December 17th, 2020. I believe that should be May 18th, 2021 and April 15th, 2021. That is today's report. The petition for the right-of-way vacation dated February 28th, 2021, which is before you today. The right-of-way vacation exhibits that were attached to that petition application that's dated January 28th, 2021, including that legal description. The public hearing notice, the list of notifications, and the affidavit of publication in the St. Louis Countian. And those are part of your packet, your paper packets. The City of Olivet 2006 Comprehensive Plan, the Municipal Code of the City of Olivet, including Title IV specifically, our Land Use Code, which includes Chapter 405, our subdivision regulations, and the zoning map of the City of Olivet.
Carlos, the only thing I want to clarify, I believe you mentioned May, and I think you were trying to say March, for the meeting date.
Yes.
Or the report date. I apologize.
Correct. I appreciate that, sir.
No problem. Okay. So do we, since we don't have any further discussion, Carlos, do we have any public comments related to this?
Well, first, Chairman, I'm going to bring over the petitioners.
Oh, good.
Bear with me here. I'm going to transfer Brian Jokerst first, and then Brian, if there's anybody else in attendance, I'm sorry, there's various names here. So if there's anybody else I need to bring over. Brian, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes. Mhm. Is there anyone else that on your team tonight?
No, it was just me.
Just wanted to make sure. Thank you, sir.
Yep. And my name is Brian Jokers. I'm with Elite Development Services, and I'm representing the owner under contract for the Birdie Lane subdivision, Freeman Homes. And yeah, I think Carlos explained it very well. It's just a irregular remnant piece of right of way that I assume as well was for the existing driveway there. And the existing driveway obviously will be going away with the new Birdie Lane subdivision. So we just would like to remove that and clean it up for the new Birdie Lane subdivision, which would be lot 1 there in that area. So.
Good. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Brian? Being none, I think Carlos, thanks, Brian. I appreciate you being here. And then Carlos, do we have any public comments?
Is there anybody that would like to speak in regards to in the public hearing for this petition item? If you can show your hands, if you can give me a quick second, Chairman.
No problem.
Chairman, noting of the, there's 15 attendees still out there. Nobody's raised their hand. So I'm going to assume that nobody else would like to speak regarding this petition item.
Okay, good. So that being said, I believe we need to close the public hearing at this point in time before we conduct a vote. Is that correct, Carlos, before I make a mistake? Okay.
You're correct.
So we'll close the public hearing now, and now we'll be back to a kind of our regular, scheduled meeting. If anybody would like to entertain a motion, that'd be great. And I was having a hard time finding the recommended motion, but it's on the screen now. If anybody,
I'll make a motion if that's okay, Chairman.
that'd be great, Brian.
Motion to forward a recommendation to the City Council to vacate 137 square feet of public right-of-way along the north side of Old Bonham Road, abutting the southwest corner of the property currently addressed as 9411 Old Bonham Road, as presented before the Commission on April 15th, 2021, and per staff memorandum dated April 15, 2021, subject to any additional conditions approved by the Commission, which there are none.
Great. Motion's been made by Brian Lewis. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Was it? I think, was that Carol that seconded it first? Seconded by Carol. Thanks, Tim, but Carol beat you to it. Go ahead, Carlos, if you could call the roll, that'd be great.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Chairman Jurgel.
Approved.
The motion to recommend passes unanimously. The next step in this is that an ordinance with the exhibit of the legal description before you tonight will go to the City Council for final approval.
Good.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Okay, so now that addressed item B. Is that right, Carlos, or is item
That is
B
true.
something new? Okay, so I think we're on to item C. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct.
Okay, good. So tell me when you're ready to go and we can move on.
Bear with me 1 second here. Bear with me 1 second, Chairman.
No worries.
Okay, Chairman. We're now prepared to enter into phase 2 of the MU Gateway District rezoning process. As you're aware, earlier this year, we received and reviewed a petition from the Opus Group to redevelop approximately 5 acres of single-family properties. I think there were 23 single-family homes addressed off of Ryam and Irvington Courts. The properties are under contract and were assembled independently, specifically privately. And the developer has interest in those properties to construct a 5-story, 207-unit multifamily apartment complex. And I may have just want to double check on that number just to make sure. And there. So you have a copy of your staff report that was issued this afternoon. So Chairman, I'm not sure. I apologize. I thought you were going to be working. You were going to be
No worries.
meeting from home. So
I have it in
let's
front
give
of me.
a short, brief overview of the application submission, and then I'll go through that aspect of it.
That'd be great.
If I can find my copy here. So again, property considering the rezoning to the MU Gateway District, there's a 3-part process in that. There is a conceptual review, which of course the commission conducted back in January into February with the developers and had conceptual discussions of the proposed project for the petitioner to consider. Phase 2 is the development review process, and through the development review process, we will review the development proposal in accordance with the current code, identify any divergence in the code requirements, review, discuss, and settle on collective code amendments that would be applicable just within the boundaries of the proposed development, authorize any special permits or special permit uses that would be necessary, and also conduct a community design, site plan, and concept stormwater management plan reviews like we would for any other petition. We'll draft a ordinance which will incorporate any amendments that are specific for this development and address all the plating issues that would be necessary for this development. In a development like this, there will be the vacation of the 2 roads, Irvington Court and Ryam Court, and also a consolidation of those roads along with all those individual properties, and in this case, to create one parcel, a 5-acre parcel that will be the primary site for the proposed development. And then we'll develop an ordinance to rezone the property and create it into a planned development district. The intent of the MU district is to ensure the coordinated redevelopment of the area of land adjacent to I-170 and Olive to develop a mixed-use gateway within the city that is within substantial compliance with Olivet's strategic plan and the municipal code. And of course, our strategic plan is the 2006 comprehensive plan. During the development review process, again, we'll engage with the developer on the final aspects of the proposed site development. They have submitted a package set in accordance with the criteria that's necessary for review. So you would have received in your most recent packet, and it was also published on our website already, was a traffic impact study that was conducted for the development and its impact on the site and the surrounding arterials. You received the photometric study, preliminary landscape plan or a landscape plan, the 2 plats, one for vacating the roads, Irvington and Ryam, and then a consolidation plat for creating that one 5-acre parcel that would be the primary parcel for this development. And then the initial architectural and site improvement plans in there. That site is this hashed in area just north of Chevy's, which is here to the right-hand side, and CVS, which is on the left-hand side. So it's kind of nestled between Hilltop Drive and North Price Road, which kind of runs here in a diagonal. Bear with me 1 second. And your plans show the existing 23 single-family properties along with the surrounding properties, including those along Hilltop, Chevy's, CVS, the City of Olivet Public Works Facility, City of Olivet Parking Facility, and some residential properties north of Alice Place, which is the northern boundary of the proposed area. The proposed development plans identified here is to have a 5-story structure with 207 single-family, apartments in there. Within your tables, you have the identification of the various unit sizes and bedrooms. On the north side of this plat, there would be some dedication of additional right-of-way to Alice Place. Also, some improvements proposed along Alice Place, including a new pedestrian pathway running east to west along Alice and there. And we have been in discussions about extending that pathway all the way to Hilltop and then all the way to Price here on the left-hand side. Primary access for the development and the address of the development will be off an easement that was secured from the redevelopment of the old Beckman property, which is today CVS pharmacy. During the redevelopment for the CVS, the city secured an easement from North Price Road to access and serve potential redevelopment of these properties off of Irvington and Ryan Court. So back in 2006, when CVS was being reviewed, the city was already making plans and setting in motion preparations that this area was ripe for the development. And we knew from the various property owners within this area that they had been entertained and were also reaching out to various developers for redevelopment. That being said, in the plans, you will see, we know we have an access that has been defined off of the CVS property, but we're working with the petitioner to consider various alternatives to move that access a little bit more further north. That would do 2 things. One, it helps on the alignment with this curve that you see right here. And 2, it would help also realign with some of the aprons that are here. Right now on North Price Road, and we'll get a little bit into detail regarding the traffic impact study. We know we do have some pretty substantial backups in peak hours in the morning, primarily in the afternoon when a lot of people are going home from the industrial park. And that industrial park, which is consists of Dillman Industrial Drive and North Price and the various streets that extend off of those. It has back in 2017 an employment level of 3,500 people. So it's a pretty active park. Some of our major employers are located back here, including the Murphy Company, Enterprise Fleet Management, Virginia Tile, Honeywell, which is the old Intelligrated, goes back to Alvey. And there, so we know it's a very active park. We know in the past we've been looking at the traffic impacts in the industrial park, which is has a limited access onto North Price Road, Dillman Industrial Drive, just a little bit west of this this site, and then up to Dillman Road on the far western end of the industrial park, with of course the cross access to Hallis Place to get into Hilltop Avenue or Hilltop Drive. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So again, for right now, we know we have a secured easement to access this, but the developer has engaged discussions with CVS about trying to relocate and move that access entrance a little bit further north to take consideration of the curb area and the access cuts. If that doesn't work, the city is also looking that maybe that we would participate and entertain providing the access to that entrance on the Public Works property right around here. You can see where the property line is right there. And we do have some illustrations. Again, the developer's been kind enough to work with us. This is the proposed site, just utilizing the the existing CBS easement. This is an alternative site, moving the entrance further north, just south of the curb leg. And then this is a option of placing the entrance on the north end and on city property if we're unsuccessful to come to some resolution with CVS. You have the stormwater information, part of your concept stormwater management plan. You have various sections of the property, and we specifically requested from my end information on cross sections for the properties that are off a hilltop and the distances to the building that you'll see here in section AA and section BB. And I asked the commission to take a close look at those. In terms of distances, site triangles and such. They did a good job of identifying this. This would be, section AA is on the south end of the development. Section BB is more towards the northern end. So Hilltop Drive would be off the charts on this end. And then you would see the single family homes that are currently existing. That would be address off of Hilltop. And then here's the property line for the properties that are off of Irvington Court and Rhyme. That would be part of the 5-acre development. This cross section is a north-south cross section. We request those in the required parts of our application process. You have an improved site plan that is part of your packet. They've worked diligently to try to break up the parking surface area on this site. Again, I'll note part of the request for this redevelopment is to have a reduction in the number of parking stalls that are required by code. That is part of your packet of information that's been submitted by the petitioner. In there, they would be providing roughly 81 to 82% of the required parking in there, and they provide the anticipated number that they would have or be requesting per apartment unit, and why they feel that that we exceed the necessary number. And I'll remind the commission, we also provided a parking reduction to the Oliver. That one was a little bit easier in terms that the code takes into consideration mixed uses. So they got a 20% reduction in the required parking because they have a retail component as part of the 3-acre city center redevelopment project. In this case, this is not a retail type of development because it's nestled behind two major buildings that front Olive, and it does not have any commercial access except for that easement off CVS. So this will be primarily residential, but again, it kind of reflects that it's something we need to address in our parking code, that the amount of parking that's required is probably more than necessary in there, and I feel comfortable with the reduction request that they've submitted. They've taken the commission's comments in terms of trying to break up that parking field and to segment it, make it more in towards a block pattern, which relates more to what our goals in the strategic plan in there. And then they're providing various carports. So you see those roof areas along the perimeter of the code. I'll note to the commission, and here's from when we put together chapter 428 to provide guidance to developers in terms of what the city's expectations are for redevelopment along the Olive Boulevard corridor. Structured parking wasn't part of that consideration. So when we sit down and engage with developers and have discussions, we use chapter 428 because our goal, again, a goal of the 2006 comprehensive plan is to improve developer relations, which the city has been working on for the past 18 years, ever since the 98 TIF that happened in this area, that we've been trying to work well with the development community, identify the city's core values and priorities in the development, codify those as we did in chapter 428. And again, structured parking was not part of that component. And it may be something the commission wants to go back and look at amending in the future. You have various elevations of the proposed building in there. And again, so far, most of these are consistent with the various building materials that are identified in our chapter 428 community design standards. At the request, you have various street perspectives to kind of illustrate the background of those buildings here at eye level, here at the Public Works off of, because this would be looking from Hilltop, this would be looking from Price, and this would be the Public Works building. This would be looking from Alice to get a perspective of the building with its surroundings. We are aware of the properties on Hilltop and the comments that we heard from a resident regarding their impact and value and probability of continued use of single family homes. The city has had discussions with a developer who has approached, has made attempts to approach all the property owners on Hilltop and engage in discussions about consolidating those properties and maybe providing a different development in there so we can have some type of transition. Now, this is independent from the development proposal before you today, and it's also being done by a different development team. So I don't want to confuse those, but the city is aware that, you know, that this development will have an impact on the highest and best use or continued use of single families along that western side of Hilltop Drive. We think you'll have minimal impact on those in the Collingwood area. Again, you have the various materials and more specific elevations. As part of your packet, you have the internal layouts in there. And this is pretty much close what you'll see in the third phase when they get ready for before applying for actual petitions. You have your landscape plan in there. You do have this via PDF because you really have to get in close to take a look at the landscaping. And again, this is Alice Place that's running here. Alice, the sidewalk or pathway along Alice, the developer has agreed to work with the city in extending and looking at ways to see if we can extend that sidewalk westward to connect to Price. We realize we do have a pretty big obstacle right here, just west of our Public Works entrance to our gassing area. There's a gas tanks and gas pumps that are located back here. And then there are various maintenance bays that are on this side. There's a big, I'm not sure what the right term, depression that's for a water meter that's in there that we would have to try to address. We also would have to look at our fencing that enclose and secure the Public Works facilities in the back and what's left out there. On the eastern end, and I apologize, excuse me. On the eastern end, you know, we have been in discussions with them about instead of terminating this pathway, extending that pathway eastward to connect to the sidewalk that is on Hilltop. So, this again will help the city address and issues about connectivity and making sure that the Hilltop Arrowhead neighborhoods are fully integrated and connected both vehicular and pedestrian wise with the rest of the community. As you know, we're working hard with Olive Crossing in terms of providing an opportunity for residents that live in Hilltop and the Arrowhead neighborhoods to cross Olive Boulevard and enjoy the accommodations and the development at Olive Crossing that's going to be constructed south of Olive. So again, the development acknowledges and looks at the connectivity issues that are important part of our strategic plan. It addresses the challenges that we know that the strategic plan identified that, you know, it's going to be difficult to do redevelopment and balance and avoid impact to adjacent single family residential properties. And the city has to be sensitive to that issue. And in doing so, the city council, through the commission's recommendations, has adopted buffer standards, which include the screen wall, the 10-foot landscape strip, and such as a minimum means for providing that transition. And in this case, the developer is setting the building further outward and also increasing the amount of landscaping or the strip of landscaping that abuts the single family homes on Hilltop. And outside of that, I think that addresses or gives you a quick summary In terms of the development review and what you have before you tonight. The petitioner is in attendance. He also has his team, including the traffic engineer is on here, the architect, and would, again, to gather general comments and questions on this. And the next step in the process, I don't anticipate the commission taking any action. We have identified some of the code criteria that we would have to kind of discuss. That is like the reduction of the parking units. Those are outlined in your staff report that was issued in there. And also consider the special permit use for the building height. They're not looking for any variance or special consideration for the building height. It's just under our code that if you exceed 45 feet, you have to be reviewed and authorized by the commission, just to make sure that the commission considers the site plan review standards, and that is to minimize any adverse impact both within and to adjacent sites. It's not any special request. It's just part of that process in there. Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions. I know it's a lot of information to throw all at one night in there, but I hope I gave a okay overview on that.
That was a great overview. There is a lot of information, especially that traffic study, to go through that. But before we kind of go into that or anything, but does anybody else on the commission have any specific questions or comments for Carlos? I have a few, but I'll see if there's anybody on the commission first. Go ahead, Brian. I see Brian's hand raised.
I just had a question. I was looking at the traffic study. It listed number of increased trips, and that makes sense. Overall, Carlos, and not subject to this specific development, but with all the new additions we have, the Olive Crossing, et cetera, is there an overall traffic arching program looking at all the impacts to all of them together? Or I guess as they do their individuals, are they taking into account the other developments we have coming as well?
It's an excellent question. I do appreciate you asking that because it is important. In 2006, with the adoption of the City of Olivet's comprehensive plan, it did identify some priorities and some issues that we needed to address with the Olive Boulevard corridor. The peak volume usage of the corridor was, I believe, late 1980s, when there were over 40,000 vehicle trips average per day or so. There was a certain way that the Missouri Department of Transportation does it. It was over 40,000. Today it is at 32,000 vehicle trips per day. But you see the traffic backups, early mornings and in the afternoons, and it's hard to fathom how did that happen if the amount of vehicle volume is down. With the improvements to Page and the Page extension, with the redevelopment of the US 40 into I-64, a lot of that traffic volume, those vehicle trips did shift to other arterials. The issue that the comprehensive plan identified is that we got a lot of curb cuts and we got a lot of conflict points along the corridor in there. So to address that, the next step that the city took was to prepare the Olive Boulevard conceptual master plan. And that was just a couple of years ago that went through the commission. That helped us to identify potential areas for consolidating curbs, doing street improvements, looking at medians, and gave us a long-term list of items that we could look to as redevelopment occurs. Now, sometimes redevelopment happens really fast and sometimes it happens really slow. And we've been pretty fortunate the past couple of years. So we've implemented some of those recommendations. We've removed and or eliminated a lot of curb cuts throughout the corridor, but we still have a lot of old and existing ones. The worst case is like right by the mobile station. Nothing wrong with the mobile station in any form or any way, but there are probably about 6 or 7 different curb cuts that you could do left and right turns on Olive. And all those cuts create conflict points or potentials for delays. And then when you have the school buses and all that, those can all back up, or even the regular Metro buses on there. So the next step we took, and we're in the process of working with a traffic engineer, CBB, is looking at this area specifically, what they call the north east quadrant, which extends from I-170 on the eastern side to Dealman Road on the western side, and everything north of Olive. Because we know we have over 35,000 employees that are nestled in that quadrant. We have the single family homes that you find on Hilltop, Brightling, Collingwood, Arrowhead subdivision, and even Irvington and Rhyme in there. And we looked at how many ways are there to exit. And the core issue that we found in terms of trying to facilitate traffic out of this area is the left turn lanes. That there just generally isn't, the left turn lane generally serves as a dual use and on these intersections, or it could, like if you're looking to turn right on Olive, you could be backed up behind 2 or 3 cars that are turning left. So we engage with CBB to do analysis on Hilltop and Olive, Price and Olive, Dealman Industrial and Olive, the potential for another signalized intersection, either at Olivet Executive or at the mobile station, and then look at Dealman and Olive. And in considering that, to take a look or take into account development activity that's taking place in this area, the potential for increased development in this area, and also to consider, the redevelopments of the Olive Crossing and the developments that are occurring at University City. They're going to have a sizable, if it all goes through fruition, they will have a sizable project, a Costco, and hopefully a little bit more than that on that end, multi-story buildings. So within the traffic impact analysis that you see as part of this petition, they take into consideration those counts. The city has a separate traffic analysis that's looking at all of those, and we're looking at what improvements can be implemented, not solely whether this development happens or not, but that are necessary to ensure that we take into account reinvestment in our community or increased densities and populations and such. Many of those are really expensive to pursue, but we're trying to position ourselves to identify how best and most efficiently we can make significant improvements, be prepared to try to find partners or funding sources to do those improvements and such. What we can't do, and I don't think this is what you were asking, is that we can't try to resolve it based on one new tear down or a couple of tear downs of single family homes, or one new development such as this. The current signalizations or intersections along that corridor are rated pretty low. I think it shows in your report. And whether this development happens or not in the next 20 years, they're not going to get better unless the city makes adjustments or improvements to the turning movements, trying to get in and out of those 3 major intersections that I noted: Hilltop, Price, and Dealman Industrial. So yes, long story short, I was trying to explain we are seriously taking a look at this. It's part of an evolution of different steps in there, to a point that we're prepared to start at least engaging in designing of some of these intersections, and then pursuing funding for them.
Okay, good. Thanks, Carlos. Is there anybody else that has any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Carol.
Carlos, thank you.
Carol, unfortunately, your mic went out again.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
Okay. My question relates to the traffic study, and I'm looking at table 4. the baseline build and no build, I guess that's baseline and build conditions. On the southbound Avenue approach line for Hilltop, when it reaches capacity level F on the base and build conditions. And I was just wondering why that is not in red, but the southbound Price Road, when it reaches level F, it is in red. I just don't know if that was an error, if there's an intentional.
And Chairman, if we can hold that thought for a second.
Sure.
And see if there's any other question. I know they have their traffic engineer in attendance. It's a good question, Carol. I didn't pick that up. And there may be a simple answer to that. Or Chairman, I can transfer him to address that question specifically.
Well, let's just wait real quick. I think, we'll go, because there's another, it's very similar on the next, on a couple of the different tables. I think there's two table fours. One says 2021 baseline and build conditions, and the other one says 2020 conditions. And I think it has the same sort of thing and just in different places. If Carol, if you don't mind, we can wait on that.
Not at all.
I had a couple just quick comments, and it was about moving the entrance to the north and the potential impact to the Great River Greenway path. Because it does look like if we go further north, it's, that Great River Greenway path is going to cross closer to Price and potentially be a safety issue for, bicyclists and people turning in there. And I didn't know if there was any plans for a crossing, like light, over, or anything else like that.
I would have this addressed by the developer, but it's my understanding, and it's not shown as well in the plans that have been submitted. So it's something that we'll have to bring back in. But their intent was to work with the GRG, provide some type of table crossing to emphasize the trail movement in there. You are correct. If we relocate the entrance further north, that means the GRG trail would be move further west and closer to Price Road. But the intent is not to reduce the width size of the GRG trail. Again, I'll let the developers answer this because there was a little bit more detail in the conceptual review plans of how they would recognize the crossing through their entrance.
Okay, then I also had a question because based on this current drawing, the southeast corner of the building, in previous drawings, it looked like it had a larger green space. And I believe that's just the process of, because they moved the wall and the parking lot towards the west. And so they lost a little bit of green space next to the building. And I just wanted to kind of confirm that.
Again, I think that'd be best answered by their architect and engineer, if that's all right.
Yeah. Then the only other thing is those depiction, the photos that kind of show the existing building in the different locations. I didn't see that on the report or the handouts. And I believe you said that's on the website. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. Okay,
Are you
great.
talking about those I have up right now?
That's exactly right.
Okay, yes, they were. And apologize that there would have been in the packet of information that had the building plans. So I tried to break up that file. So they're going to be in the bigger packet of paper that you received on Friday, Wednesday.
Okay, good. I'll see if I can look through it. I didn't see it in my existing packet, but I'll pull it off the website. Okay, Carlos, I think unless there's any other questions on the commission for Carlos, I think we should bring on the petitioners. Seeing none, Carlos, if you can bring them on, that'd be great.
Okay, Mr. Kelly, I'm going to promote you first into panelist, and then I see Mr. Barkus, Mr. Cannon, who's a traffic analysis, and Mr. Carley, who's part of the Opus group also. And then, gentlemen, if you can let me know if there's anybody else I need to bring over. Mr. Schubert, I'm going to bring you over too.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Carlos, do you mind promoting, let me think who else we need here. Joe or Gary's here. Yeah, I think just Joe Horvath, who's our consultant with Cole and Associates for the landscaping.
Yep.
And Joe has a presentation to pull up if we have the ability to share our screen.
Should be able to. Joe?
Yep, doing it now.
All right.
Perfect. Well, we were just going to, well, I'm Ryan Carley, Director of Development with Opus Development Company. Excited to be back in front of you this evening to advance the approval process for this project. And Carlos did a very good job providing an overview of the refinements that we've made in the additional discussions we've had with city staff. But as a refresher, we did initially meet for the concept review process with you all on January 21st and had our second concept review meeting on February 4th. And then in between those two meetings, well, before the first concept review meeting, we met with, we held a neighborhood public meeting and to gather feedback from local residents. And those preliminary meetings allowed us to garner some really valuable feedback. And we've taken that feedback and made adjustments to the project and look forward to reviewing those with you this evening, along with our architectural vision for the project as well. So I'll just do a little refresher on who we are as Opus. I won't spend a lot of time on this since you're all familiar with us and we've presented to you before, but we're a fully integrated team of architects, engineers, design builders, and developers. So as you'll see under the Opus group, we've got Opus Design Builders, our team of architects, team of construction. And then Opus AE is our team of architects and engineers, and Opus Development Company, who are our development team. We're all located in St. Louis, majority of us. Gary, our architect, is out of Kansas City, but we all office here and live in St. Louis. And then we've assembled a best-in-class professional project team, and we've got majority of representatives from these groups on the call to answer any specific questions that may come up. And there are already some good ones that we'll look forward to addressing here in our presentation. So just a few key benchmark projects that we've also recently completed. We've reviewed these previously, but we're a 65-year-old company, as I mentioned, fully integrated with a diversified by product type with a heavy focus on multifamily and industrial. And here's a sampling of some of the recent projects completed. The two multifamily on the top right are in Citizen Park, Central West End, Ceylon, and Clayton. Soulard Commerce Center's industrial project in the Soulard neighborhood of St. Louis, and then Westport Apartments delivered at the end of last year in Kansas City. Just a little sampling of our ability to execute on complex infill projects. So now we'll jump into the project description itself. Carlos did a really good job of framing it, so I won't spend a bunch of time here, but yes, 23 homes on Irvington and Rayham, bordered by Price to the west, Hilltop to the east, Alice to the north. We currently have all homes under contract with willing sellers, not by eminent domain. The next slide is our conceptual massing. So again, 5 stories, approximately 207 units consisting of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. We've got 281 approximately surface stalls proposed, with 50 of those being covered. To the next slide, Joe. And then I just wanted to review the development objectives, as Olivet has adopted a dynamic sense of place for its strategic plan. And that plan has set forth four main areas, including community development, economic development, public spaces, and transportation connections. And this development squarely achieves those, the following that we'll review in further detail in our presentation, but I wanted to highlight some of that alignment with these four goals now before we get in, just to keep those in mind. So we are providing a housing mix here. We'll offer a mix of options and price points through a variety of unit type offerings. As I mentioned, we've got smaller 1 bedrooms, moderate sized 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, and that'll attract an array of resident profile and demographic and age as well. And live, work, play. The residents will have the ability to enjoy our resort style amenities within the development, as well as the public connections that we're proposing in bike or walk to work and social activities. And also engage with the local retail as an additional amenity. And then economic development, the project will increase the density and design quality while transforming the character of the neighborhood. And that's really what's happening along this corridor with the projects that are being proposed and underway, is a true transformation. And we're excited to be a part of that, especially on a site that contains 23 homes that are approximately 80 years old and over 30% vacant. Not to mention the economic impact. You'll see an economic impact study included in the deliverable that we provided with our application for the development plan. And it outlines the direct benefit to the city of Olivet over a 20-year period is estimated to be $1.7 million, and to the Ladue School District around $4.4 million. And then public spaces, we're proposing to enhance the public's area along Alice Place, and will increase accessibility and connectivity for the residents living in that area. And then transportation connections. We are exploring, as Carlos mentioned, the ability to connect the Alice sidewalk, where we're installing a significant portion of it, but connect it to the east to Hilltop, to the west to connect Price. There's some topography, other issues that we have to manage and deal with, but we certainly agree that that's a really good solution and think it would be beneficial to the community and just create that further connectivity and integration with the northeast quadrant. And we're going to work with the Olivet community to have the ability to have pedestrians pass through our project to reach the future Centennial Greenway, and we'll get into that detail a little bit more on our next slide. And also just from a vehicular, the easy access to 170 to be able to navigate north, south, and east and west can't really be beat. So we'll move on to the site plan, and I'll probably with this, maybe we can start addressing some of the specific questions that were asked. So we are proposing, as a part of the entryway off of Price, and Carlos did a good job outlining those two proposed alternative options, and we're in discussions with CVS currently, have submitted them an easement for review that their legal counsel is reviewing. Although they aren't the landlord, they still have to provide approval. Then it goes to the landlord for them to sign off and actually execute the document. So that's underway. But we will plan to have a raised tabletop crosswalk there. And obviously safety is a top priority. And we plan to have some sort of hawk signal there as well, as was proposed or mentioned just previously. So we certainly are taking that into consideration and look forward to meeting with GRG and collaborating with them once we have a definitive location in place for where that curb cut wants to be. And then regarding the green space on the southeast side, what we've done is we've actually increased, there was mentioned in our concept review to explore increasing the setback from our property line to where the residential home rear yards are on Hilltop. We were able to accomplish that, and we've now increased that setback from the fence. So it's 19 feet now. It was, the code was 10 feet. We've now increased that to 19 feet. So in doing so, we that green space there as a result, but ultimately think that that's a better solution, provided the comments that were made in previous meetings. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Gary to maybe just give a refresher on this updated plan and some of the we're providing here and proposing as a part of the development.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. So
in terms of, where we started with the design, we know we have a curb cut and vehicular access off of Alice Place at the north and the CVS drive that we've talked about. We have to have circulation around the building, both for fire department access as well as convenience for the residents living here. So we have a perimeter circulation drive that runs around the site and the building with parking off of that, the majority being a single loaded drive. The building was placed, it's a C-shaped orientation. We want to have some sunlight coming into the courtyard. We also wanted to push the height and the massing of the building to the west, to those more public streets, and minimize the amount of building face or building wall that meets up with the east side of the property. So again, minimizing that massing of the building in those 2 points that reach to the east. With the parking lot itself, we do have off of the linear pathway or linear park on Alice Place 2 nodes. There would be a planter feature, some benches for seating, for resting if you're walking or taking a rest if you're bicycling. Those are also pedestrian entry points into the site. So at the east side, that node, there would be a monument sign, kind of that pedestrian node, and then a pathway with a pavement texture that leads to our building and a sidewalk on our building that is on the north side of the building, kind of leading over to the west. We have a second node as well in this linear park, and that will lead pedestrians again across a textured pavement change and down the west side of our building over to Price Road or the Green Rivers Parkway. So that's really a pedestrian shortcut through our property to the Great Rivers Greenway and to the other commercial properties, from residences to the north and east could traverse through our property and get over to some of the commercial properties to the southwest. Again, we've tried to break up the parking around the building. And while it's convenient for our residents to be up against the building, we have multiple entry points into the building. We also recognize the need to visually break up this parking. So we've banded with these textured pavement changes in the asphalt paving. There'll be a textured and a colored concrete paver type of striping. Those will block the parking into, we believe, more visually manageable pods of parking. So again, that breaks it up. We've aligned our landscaping and our trees, again, with these color blockings, these concrete strips. So it creates these nice banded and kind of encapsulated parking modules or blocks. As you come in off of Price Road, that leads to the main entry of the building. We've also created a texture change in the pavement there to create kind of a sense of arrival, a sense of entry, and really a bit of a parking plaza with that pavement change there. And that's where we have, of course, our visitor parking, our ADA parking there. Other parking features would be we have carports that are to the south, backing up against Chevys, and then to the west side. Again, trying to be sensitive of where those carports go relative to anything that you see from Alice Place, the public street there, as well as on the east side. We do have bike racks tucked in our amenity court, kind of at the south end of that amenity court. So that's a convenient spot for the bike riders to go from the building and out to the public way. That covers most of the things, I believe, Ryan, unless I've missed anything. We could kind of probably next get into kind of the grading and shaping of the site as well. We can kind of get into that further with our civil engineer and talk about some of those features. But
the only other thing I wanted to mention was just that was a conversation and concern in some of our previous discussions was the potential for light intrusion onto the neighboring.
Mhm.
We did have a lighting consultant, G&W Engineering, complete a lighting plan that ensures there won't be any light encroachment onto any of the neighboring properties, and that should be in your packets. That shows 0-foot candles across any of the property, our property lines. that would encroach onto the neighbors there around the entire property, not just to the east. And I think that does cover, yeah, I think if we want to get into our civil plan and have Josh maybe do a review of how we've accommodated the grade and what our plan is there.
Sure, thank you. So the site today, Alice Place is fairly flat. That there's not much elevation change as you head east and west until you get east of our property towards Hilltop. So the high point of the road itself is about elevation 598.5, and that's right under the E in Alice Place as shown on the plan here. So our finished floor is proposed to be at 595.5, 3 feet below the high point of Alice Place. So our main entrance, or our entrance off of Alice, then comes down into the site to lead into the parking area. And then generally around the northwest and the majority of the south side, we're draining out to our curb lines to pick up the stormwater in various inlets. Along the east and along the south side, once we get past the entrances, we steepen the grade across the parking lot to allow us to match grade that exists on the east side of our boundary prior to the existing 5-foot easement that is on our side of the lot line that contains the overhead Ameren easements. So what you can see is a large dashed kind of dark line that starts up there by our western node, heads east, and then has a radius to the south, and then heads southeast. And that's the relocation of an existing 36-inch storm sewer that's a public sewer that currently is within easement and the various right-of-ways for Ryam and Irvington Court that come through the site. So our storm drainage will be picked up at inlets in the parking lots. Those will be treated, various parts of the parking lot will be treated for water quality through a structural BMP, and then they will drain into an underground detention system. And so we've done a conceptual review with MSD, and what that conceptual review does is it outlines all the criteria that will be held to when we get into our improvement plans. And one of the items that they mentioned relative to stormwater is that we have to assume that this existing site is undeveloped. So we don't get to count the runoff that is taking place with the homes and the roadways and the driveways that are there today. Our limit is set to how this would run off as if it were green before anything were developed. So that's why we have these 3 shaded areas, one on the southwest corner, one on the southeast corner, and one on the east side there. Those are underground detention systems that would attenuate that flow for the 2 and 100-year storm event before we discharge back into that public system that we would be relocating through the site. The building and the amenity area are being captured in 2 bioretention cells on the north and the south side of the connecting walk that brings us from the eastern parking area into the amenity space. So those will promote infiltration and runoff reduction as required by MSD. Then they will also connect to the underground detention system prior to discharging into the public storm sewer. The grades to the west of us up on the CVS property right now near the edge of the property, the CVS property is about 10 feet higher than the existing homes today. And then there's a 3-to-1 slope that runs from west to east along that eastern boundary of CVS. So there's a portion there within the big black box that's denoting the alternates that we would have a retaining wall there to hold back that higher grade. That wall is proposed to be about 5.5 foot at its tallest point, which is kind of the midpoint of the wall. Our only other retaining wall that we're showing to catch grade is along the south. And that wall there is only about 24 inches tall. And the reason being that it's there is there's again overhead electric that runs through there that we don't want to disrupt. We're in some preliminary discussions with Ameren about which poles need to remain and which ones can be removed when these existing homes would be demolished. But for now, we're respecting the fact that if they have to remain, that we can leave them in place. One of the items that Ryan had touched on in one of the questions of the commissioner was again the boundary along the east. And as Ryan mentioned, we've set the back of curb, so the east side of the curb line for our parking along the entire eastern boundary, 19 feet off of the property line that exists there today. We then have about 18 inches to allow for car overhangs, and then we have the required 6-foot tall screen wall that's set forth by the city code. So that leaves us approximately 16 feet of green to allow landscaping to take place and kind of buffer between our project and the existing single family homes along Hilltop Avenue. And then the next slide kind of shows the various sections that we've cut through the site. In section AA, again, is at the south side, and that's measured from the point at which our building is closest to that east property line. So at that point, we are about just over 65 feet 6 inches from our building to the property line. And then there's another 66 feet, just under 67 feet to the west wall of the existing home that's there. And with that, we've shown the dimension of the 19 feet that is measured from the property line to our parking area. We've shown some trees in here. These aren't necessarily the installed height. We'll talk about that a little bit more with the landscape architect following the review of these sections. And then we've shown the overhead electric line, just kind of how it plays into any line of sight that you may have from that point. The section BB is taken on the north side. And again, it's at a point at which our building is closest to that east property line. And at that point, our building is just over 121 feet from the eastern property line. And then from that point to the home where this section is cut, there's an additional just over 81 feet to get to the west back wall of that existing home. And we've again shown some potential line of sight from someone that may be standing in the back of their house looking through the window and what their view would be looking back towards our project. The west sides of both section A and B are along the city property. So you can see the existing slope on section A on the west coming down and some vegetation that we would respect and leave in place before our parking begins. And same way with section BB, that one we're actually real close to grade as it exists today. Section CC is running north-south. So it shows Alice Place on the left and kind of how we have that platform for that walkway that's running east-west for that connector node. And then from that walkway, we would slope down to our parking area. And then our building from the right-of-way line, as it stands today, we're just over or just below 100 feet from the right-of-way line to the starter of our building. And then you see our building step up and come back down, and that kind of creates the amenity space that you see there between those two nodes of the building. And then on the south end, we are approximately at this particular section cut, we are just under 96 feet from that property line. Now that varies depending on where you cut those sections, but on the site plan itself, there are dimensions and our proposed setback lines that wrap around the site for not only our proposed setbacks for parking, but for the building as well, that we would contain our development within. And Ryan, I don't know if there's any items else that I may have missed.
Yeah, no, Josh, that was really thorough. I appreciate it. I think it addressed a lot of the questions that we were asked in the previous concept plan on how we're going to address the topography. And I think that you did a good job of that. I'd like to maybe have Joe Horvath mention now as it relates to the landscaping offering that we're proposing on that east side as it relates to these cross sections, because what's shown here is probably not 100% accurate as it relates to the sight lines. Joe, you can elaborate on what we're proposing and how we're planning to beef up the coniferous plants along these kind of larger sections that are closer to residential homes, if you will. Bless you. Bless you.
That's lucky.
Yeah. Sorry, that's somebody in the background that's sneezing. So sorry about that.
That's all right.
Like was previously said before, that those trees in that section are shown a little bit shorter than they would be in the regular height. I think in that section they're roughly about 18 feet, but we're proposing along the right adjacent to that wall a mix of evergreen and deciduous trees that usually will grow to a height about 60 feet tall. And then in between that row of trees and the property line, we have scattered throughout flowering trees. They usually get to a height between 25 to 30 feet. So you have this multi-layer of screening. And then in addition to those, we also have a variety of shrubs planted in beds. It's a mix of deciduous and evergreen as well that range from anywhere from 3 feet to about 15 feet in height. So we're trying to cover all these different heights along that whole wall and soften that edge as much as we can within that landscape buffer area.
What's the height of the trees when they're installed? What's that height going to be? You might have mentioned it. I just want to clarify.
It depends. Typically, they're about 8 feet tall when they're installed, and the evergreen species that we're proposing over there is green giant arborvitae. And if in certain instances, if it's all in the correct growing conditions, it can average about 3 to 4 feet growth each year. So they're pretty vigorous and fast growing evergreen trees.
Yeah, I've seen that with a neighbor or two that kind of did some things for screening and it worked very well.
Yeah, they seem to work out well in situations like this.
So would it be fair to say?
Go ahead, Josh.
Sorry. Would it be fair to say, Joe, that these are more representative after about four years-ish into the project once planted, the height that this section shows?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. So maybe that's a little aggressive. So we can show what that may be on day one and knock those down a little bit as well.
And we purposefully selected those type of that landscaping to be in front of these areas and try to keep them tight to encourage additional screening in addition to what the 6-foot wall, to try to have some natural screening in place there and just exceed the requirements from the landscaping that, as Joe mentioned, to soften that a little bit. And we've got a significant area to work with there, so we're trying to take advantage of that as well. We also have some overhead lines and easements that we need to take into consideration, but I think the landscape plan does a good job of articulating exactly what we're proposing there, and it's pretty substantial. So I think, thank you, Joe. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
I think we get into our elevations, and I'll turn it back over to Gary here to walk you through our architectural visioning here.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So this got a series of renderings showing the massing of the building and the materials and the articulation of those materials. Where we started with on the design is we kind of start off and try to pick 3 adjectives that would best describe what we want the building to be, what we want people to say about the building. And then we also pick 3 adjectives that we don't want people to say about the building. And that's kind of to try to target the type of residents, the marketing, targeted marketing of who we think will want to live in these apartments and kind of what their mindset is and what their expectations are. Maybe if I start with what adjectives the building doesn't want to represent would be traditional, kind of like lapped siding, beige, kind of pitched roofs, things that lend to a more traditional type of look. What we're looking for is something that's current, fresh, and modern. That's kind of the direction we went in. And so this represents, I think, a nice look. It's not meant to be, an overly egotistical building, just a nice balance, of materials. So we have a base of brick that runs across the entire base of the building. And we've anchored the corners with a little bit higher levels of that brick for some variety. In between, we've got a white panel that has a 1x6 batten frame that divides up those panels. So we have a series of kind of reveal joint lines and then these dimensional 1x6 battens. This white color would be a more of just a white color. And the battens would be an off-white or maybe a grayish kind of a color to give a differentiation and kind of break up that wall pattern. We have some wood accents at entry points into the building. Again, the brick blend, and we'll have another page with some more detail on that brick blend, but it's an iron spot brick that kind of has a metallic clay that shimmers in the sunlight. It changes sort of its appearance from a silver to a gray look. It's a blended brick with a variety of colors of grays and this metallic clay. So it's just a real dynamic, rich brick color. Where the balconies are here, it's a recessed area. It's set back 5 feet from the white face. This gives some variety to the face of the building, kind of some ins and outs. We've also going to use that as a dark gray color applied there. Again, the dark color recesses. It accentuates that recess for the balconies. And the white color is meant to stand out and stand out proud of those recesses. So I think the choice of colors accentuates the variety and depth of the plane that we have on the building. If you go to the next page, this shows our color palette. On the right, you see the brick. It's a flashed, we call it flashed. It's kind of in the firing process of the brick. Gives us variety of kind of darks and lights. Again, this iron spot that's in the clay has a metallic silvery finish when the sun's really bright on it. So it's, again, a real rich color. It's a blend of bricks, has some variety. Our windows will be, for the residential units up above, will be a black frame. We've got clear aluminum finish on some of the larger storefront windows at our amenity and common areas around the leasing lobby. Again, the simulated wood pattern at the entry features. It'll be a simulated wood. Real wood, we found that it's just a real maintenance nightmare. It requires continual staining. It discolors in different ways depending on whether it's on the west sun or the north side. So they've got some very nice new materials that look just like wood that we've been successful with on other projects we'd like to use here. Again, the white paint, a light gray paint over on the left with a dark gray paint, that neutral palette. And then we have some accents that the renderings will show where we do have offsets in the facade of the building. Here you're seeing kind of on the upper and to the right, an accented blue it's about a 4 foot offset in the facade of the building, a 3 to 4 foot offset. That would have an accent color. So the intent there is when you pass by the building, you drive by the building or walk by it, it kind of changes in appearance. That blue color will pop out more or less depending on where you are standing and as you drive by the building. So adds a little bit of dynamic movement, I think, to the appearance of the building. Again, showing how we've tried to strengthen and bookend the corners of the building with a taller and greater amount of brick. Maybe the next slide. This is from Price Road, and this is actually showing what it would look like with one of the alternative, more northern entries up by the city facility. But again, this starts to illustrate how the building looks from Price Road. We are pretty far off of Price Road. It's set back, so there is a lot of green space between Price Road and our building. That Green Rivers Parkway will run through this area. And again, it's opportunity for landscaping and buffering, screening and minimizing the visibility of cars. But how the building starts to look from that vantage point. The next slide. This is kind of from the south, and on the right of the page would be the east property line. So these trees that are shown here were kind of a collage of some earth images, but there are a lot of existing trees on the residences to the east that would remain on their property. So there is some screening there that really wasn't shown in the cross section. But this starts to show what our parking lot looks like. There was a comment about, did we narrow up the planting at that face of the building that you see here? And we did do that. And it was really a combination of wanting to increase the buffer at that east property line against those homes. We kind of sacrificed right up against the building to add that buffer on the east. We felt between the two that was the right decision to go in that direction. We also worked with the fire department to have the proper width for fire lanes. And so we've got some dimensional pushing there that was kind of pushing on the building. But we still think we have enough of a planning buffer to soften that edge of the building. And again, it's a small portion of the building, roughly 65 feet in width on the overall length of the building that we believe we've mitigated that concern there. But you can kind of see to the north, the parking lot where we have the striped banding texture changes in the parking lot to create those parking pods or bays, the landscaped islands with the trees. It does break up the parking, we feel, very, very successfully and kind of visually manageable and nice parking pods. The next slide is from Alice Place. This sidewalk that you see at the bottom of the page would be the linear park pathway. The people gathering there kind of on the right are at that pedestrian node that links to our building sidewalk. So one of those pedestrian cross circulation paths. That node can have a planter that acts as a bench. It could have, we have a monument sign shown beyond that with that kind of blue stripe at the top of it. And what this rendering doesn't accurately or perfectly represent is that drop of 3 to 4 feet from Alice Place down to our building. So our building really is, it's a little hard to show in the rendering, but that sidewalk will be roughly, 4 feet above, 3 to 4 feet above the floor of the building. These next views we wanted to do, show the streetscape view. This is again on Hilltop, taking Google Earth images and then inserting our digital model into Google Earth. You can kind of see a little bit of our building creeping up above the trees that would remain on those residential backyards. So from the street, while you will see it from the backyard of the homes, from the street, it is fairly well screened. On Hilltop, the next slide will show the top is on Price Road, the city facility to the left, and kind of a glimpse of CVS over to the right, and how that drive kind of cuts in there and where our building is, and kind of this really shows the distance from the street to our building and what that height and massing looks like. The bottom would be Alice Place. That's really the one view of our building and where it really meets the public way in any kind of meaningful way or visible way, or with the most visibility. And again, we believe we've broken up the massing of the building with the white and dark planes of the building, the brick anchoring and bookending the ends of the building, and then the articulation of the balcony and the rhythm of the windows, the rhythm of the battens on the white panels. Feel that it's just a nice balanced composition that kind of meets those descriptors of fresh, modern, and current. So I believe that takes care of the
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. I think it is worth mentioning that Carlos did mention it, but it's worth reiterating that the homes on Hilltop, we are aware that there is a developer that's having active conversations with a majority of those homeowners on getting those homes under control to do a redevelopment of that area that would be a little bit more dense and transitional and complement what we're proposing. So we're excited about that. And then just quickly wanted to review, as I mentioned a few of these, but wanted to I think it was important to point these out. So we did have, as I mentioned, an independent third party complete an independent fiscal impact study. And as you can see, there's significant economic impact on the community as a result of this project over a 20-year period. So first, there was an original conversation or concern over the expected potential increase in school-aged children living in the project and in the development dynamics. Our consultant took a look at that and has some further information in the fiscal impact study, but expects that there would be a limited number of school-aged children. And then we thought it was worth pointing out that over a 20-year period, the additional tax revenue for the Ladue School District is estimated to be about $4.4 million. And to all of that, directly about 1.7 million over that same 20-year period. So just wanted to point a few of those out. Would encourage you to review the fiscal impact study. There's quite a bit of good information in there as it relates to the overall positive impact of the project. And I think with that, regarding the traffic study, we do have Lee Cannon on. Here's our schedule. We've reviewed this before. We're looking to complete our entitlements by September based on our contractual obligations, acquire the property in October, November, and then demolition will commence at the end of this year, and construction is to be completed in Q2 of 2023. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lee to maybe run through some of the questions that were asked, but I will say directly that Carlos did mention it, but our traffic study did take into consideration the Olive Crossing project as well as the Novus development proposed in University City. So those are factored into our traffic counts. And we have had conversations with city staff regarding the Price Road already being at capacity, and we're slightly worsening that with our project. So have had conversations with them on how we may be able to assist in alleviating some of those concerns at the Olive and Price intersection there. So with that, Lee, I'll turn it over to you if you maybe want to address those initial questions, or if anybody has any questions for Lee.
Good evening. My name's Lee Cannon. I'm a professional traffic operations engineer with CBB, and I completed the traffic impact study for the developer. You all should have a copy of that report. It's dated March 11, 2021. It's important to understand what that traffic impact study, the purpose of it was. We initially looked at the existing traffic flows or the baseline flows. With COVID-19, obviously, we couldn't go out and take representative counts this year. So we did start with counts that were completed previously prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. We also added in traffic from other known developments, such as Olive Crossing in that base level. Then we projected trips to and from the new project and added those to the base traffic, and then evaluated the before and after scenarios to determine if there was an impact. Obviously, adding additional number of units over the number of homes that are there today will have some impact, but the question was, does that impact require mitigation? So we did identify the impact that the development would have, and then come up with some alternative mitigation strategies. As was mentioned in table 4 in the report, and let me find that right quick. Page 17. A lot of the intersections along Olive, as you know, because you live and work in the area, have less than desirable levels of service, especially for the side streets. There's a substantial amount of traffic flowing along Olive, flowing on and off of the interchange at 170. And one of the big issues is MoDOT tries to limit the green time given to the side streets in order to maximize the green time given to the east-west through flows. So during the baseline conditions, both in the morning and the afternoon, peak hours, the southbound Hilltop approach operates at level service E in the morning and level service F in the afternoon. And those letters are very similar to what you would expect on your report card from school. Although in traffic engineering speak, during the peak hour, a D is actually acceptable and a pretty good level of service for a community like yours and all of that during the peak hour. So we don't try to get an A. That would just be too expensive to build that capacity, and it would go unused the rest of the day. But we do try to get a D. At Hilltop, it's an E today in the morning, and it's going to be an E after the build. It's an F today in the afternoon. It's going to be that same F after the build. So what we're attempting to show in table 4 is that there's a very small incremental impact at Hilltop, not, in our opinion, necessitating an improvement or a mitigation. When we go to Olive and Price, though, what we see is that the southbound Price similarly operating at E in the morning and F in the afternoon in the baseline. But with the addition of traffic from the site, there is a jump in the level of service, a reduction, if you will, in the level of service from an E to an F in the morning. And then in the evening, from an F to a slightly worse F. So one of the reasons that we put that in red, that was one of the questions, was in the morning at Price, moving from an E to an F, just to highlight that change. And then at Price, also in the afternoon, with the baseline F, one of our factors that we look at is our V/C ratio, and that exceeded 1. So that's a reason that we highlighted that for the engineers, the evaluators, the staff to take a look at, to understand that we're acknowledging that the system is already over capacity at this location. So the question becomes, what should be done and who should, yes, sir.
Lee, if you could just describe what the V/C is, just for everybody else.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's an engineering terminology, but basically it is the volume divided by the capacity. So if the volume is equivalent to the capacity, then the VC ratio would be 1.0. We like to see VC ratios down on the order of 0.85 or less. And anything over 1 means that the volume using the road exceeds the theoretical capacity of the road. So there's a difference, a slight difference between theoretical capacity and actual capacity, because we're using computer models. But anytime we see that V/C ratio exceeding 1, we know that that's a situation that needs to be mitigated. Now, that's a situation that needs to be mitigated prior to the development of this site. So the question becomes, what could be done to offset this issue? And as a traffic engineer, I don't assign responsibility of who should do what and who should pay for what. I simply evaluate the situation, identify if there's an impact, try to determine if there are options to offset that impact. And then the decision makers and the developers work out how that comes to be. One last thing that I should mention is that there's a typo on page 19. That table 4 is actually table 5. My apologies for that error. But in the table shown on the bottom of page 19, we illustrate improvements at southbound Price Road to create dual southbound left turn lanes and a shared through right turn lane on Price. So that would add 1 lane to southbound Price. And if you compare in that table the base condition to the build condition with improvements, so the first and the third column compared and the fourth and the sixth column compared, you'll see that actually we get better than baseline conditions for the most part with adding that southbound. So ultimately, that's the answer to the existing problem at Price and partially to the added traffic at Price as well. We go on for planning purposes to address 2041 conditions with the no build and the build. And again, we find that that improvement of southbound Price will allow that approach to continue to operate at reasonable levels of service in the future with V over C ratios less than 1. So we're very confident that that's an appropriate improvement to consider on Price Road to both deal with existing congestion as well as any additional traffic impact. So one of the other issues we looked at as part of the traffic study was related to the access connection to Price Road and how the development accesses. So we looked at those issues and we feel that the access that's proposed to the CVS connection is acceptable. However, we have been working with the developer and their options that they've identified and potentially trying to make a better connection. And as those conversations with others evolve, because it has to include other entities to change it from the way it's shown on the current plan, we would work with the developer to assist them to make sure that that access point is safe and also takes into accommodation, takes into account accommodation of the GRG trail and a safe crossing of that. No matter where the driveway is, the GRG trail will have to cross the driveway somewhere. And so we can design it so that it will operate safely. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Lee, thanks for that. I think that was great. Ryan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to reiterate that to piggyback off what Lee said, so we have been in conversations with city staff regarding the improvements that Lee just described. And we are willing to participate in some fashion in assisting with those improvements when they still need to be designed and engineered, but we are open to that discussion.
Good. All right. Is there anybody on the commission that has any specific questions that they want to address the team that's here today? And appreciate all the presentations you guys made already. So thank you. I am not seeing any. Either you guys did such a great presentation or we're all just getting tired. But thank you. Carlos, Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, because there is a wealth of knowledge and information that's been provided in the process. So it's pretty overwhelming for just that one evening. And we've had that discussion with the developer. So we will, no motion was anticipated for tonight. This will be on our agenda on May 6th. And there by that time, we will have a more formal report and even a potential draft for consideration. And again, to continue if the commission has any questions or anything that you'd like me to relay to the petitioner and his team, I'll do so. And staff-wise, we'll continue to have our discussions and dialogues with the team regarding traffic, that connectivity, the location of the access paths, the transition, and trying to fine tune and tweak some of those items. And there are also some additional questions just based on the data that's been submitted. I think it's important. And if I could take just really quick seconds just to, because I don't want to lose the momentum on it, but regarding the grading of the site and concerns regarding surface parking. And I think that those cross sections kind of illustrate it best. I think it's about a 5 or 6 foot difference from the highest point of a top of foundation to a grade in there. And that's at that southeast corner on the north side of that leg. I mean, it's just not the space to have like parking underneath the foundation or the structure. In addition to that, there are those detention areas that are placed through that parking field that also kind of prohibit, further placement of some type of structured parking. I think most importantly is that, and I think what was kind of articulated today is that there's no incentive for the structured parking from the stormwater MSD approach, and that's unfortunate. That the way the consideration of how that green space and a full improvement is being considered, there's no carrot in the process to try to encourage that, and that comes from it's not anything that within Olivet controls. It's more from MSD and how that's calculated there, in there. And at this point, the city's not looking to get in a position to further fund a development or so to try to do that just for that purpose. And again, we have to look at our codes that if that is something we want to encourage, we'd be better off if it was upfront through that process. The other thing, my understanding on the traffic planner, I think it's important to point out that the current status of the intersections of Hilltop and Alice, Price and Alice, that those rated very well, and that the increase in the number of units here will still maintain very well intersections at Price and Alice, Price and Alice and Hilltop and Alice. It's the ones that we already know that have a low level of service, and those are the Hilltop Olive, Price Olive, Dillman Olive, Dillman Industrial and Olive, and those are not specifically associated to just this development. It's it's a bigger issue. So I did want to point those out, because we really did look into that with the developer and their consultant team to see if there were opportunities out there beyond those, beyond those.
Carlos, the only question, or the only thing I had was some of the balconies that are on the northeast and the southeast that aren't tucked in to those, the building cavities. And I just want to make sure that those aren't going to be, just overhanging or, a place for, I guess we want to respect the adjacent neighbors that do have those properties to the east, to make sure it's not just invading on their privacy. So I don't know if there's a way to tuck those back in somehow, or to provide some sort of privacy, screening or something like that. Just something that's the only thing that gave me a little bit of pause.
Yeah, I might could address that a little. Is that those happen on a couple of the outside corners, and it's a little different unit. It's a larger unit that we have at that area. We did locate those, like the rendering at the upper right. That's the east property line, so it does face. The balconies do face toward the Chevy's property, not toward the residences. So they do face kind of, I guess, north-south and not to the east where those residences are. So we did consider what you're talking about there. And we could look at seeing if there's a way to tuck that in. It does reduce the size of the living room. This is really why it's different there. It's a larger unit. Where they're more recessed, it's a smaller, shallower unit there. So that's why they look different.
Or I'm just, if there's a unique way or something just to, prevent that view directly to the east right into their property, I think might be. And I'll.
Yeah, we could do, but where we have like two balconies together where units are right up against each other, more in the middle of the building, we do have a vertical kind of a screen panel that obscures that view between the two units. So you're not, reaching over to your neighbor. we could look at, maybe a wing wall type of panel or something that could help with that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Let us kind of go back to the drawing board and see what we can do there.
Yeah. And just before we leave, is there anybody else on the commission that had any questions or concerns? I'm kind of scanning and I'm not seeing anything. Carlos, before we, leave this section, I do think we need to check to see if we have any public comments.
Yes, Chairman. If there is anybody that would like to speak regarding the proposed petition, if you can just show, raise a hand. All right, Chairman, I'm going to bring Ms. Ragsdale over as a
Good.
panelist.
Hi, good evening. I'm Laura Ragsdale. I live at 1130 Irvington Court, part of the redevelopment area. And I've attended a couple of the meetings. And I just wanted to say that the new plan, I think, looks fantastic and did address a lot of the neighbors' concerns that back up on Hilltop. When I attended the neighborhood forum, their main concern was like lights and those kinds of things. So I think they've done a really well addressing that. And I would also agree with the traffic engineer. Olive and Price is a mess now at peak hours. And I don't really see any improvement for or against it. I would love 2 left turn lanes. That would make my life easier right now, especially when I have to leave to be on a baseball field at like 5:30. So that would help me out right now, but unfortunately it's not the case. So any improvement in that area with, the development would be significant. So I just wanted to address those things.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Carlos, are there any more comments?
Again, if there's anybody else that would like to speak in regards to this petition, if you can just show your hand. And at this point, Chairman, I see none.
Okay, good. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate the presentations and the information that you guys have provided everybody. So thank you for your time.
We have
Thank you.
Councilperson Waldman. Is that you?
Oh, it is. Yes. Go ahead, Missy.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Trejo, I just want to make sure I heard something correctly and that we will continue to attempt the best to answer. I thought I heard Mr. Cannon, and hello there, sir, indicate that no matter where the development attempts to try to put that entrance into their complex, it is still going to cross the Green Rivers Great Way path. Just want to make sure I understood that. And if that is correct, that I have all the faith that they will work with the city to come up with the best one that is at least impactful to that. But I want to make sure that that is what I heard. No matter what, it's going to cross the path. Yeah.
Yeah, I see the nodding heads.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much.
All right, good. All right, great. That being said, I think we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Okay, Carlos, that completes new business. I think we're on to discussion items, but I will remind us it is approaching 10 o'clock. So if something that's important, I think we should go over. But if it's not, if it can be delayed, I think we should consider it.
Chairman, at this point, I would concur. We'll get those set up for the May 6th agenda.
Good. Okay, then we'll move on to other business. I don't believe we have any meeting minutes. Is that correct?
No minutes.
Okay, so now we're just on to reports. So go ahead, Carlos.
A couple of things on the council side. On April 13th, which was this Tuesday, the council held a public hearing and approved the urban agriculture ordinance with some amendments that were different from the commission recommendation. Primarily, they went back on the number of chickens that would be authorized from 10 to 6. Outside of that, I think that was the most significant amendment of the process. Their rationale or thought was that there is a procedure for those who would want more, and they wanted to keep it at 6 in there. There was a lot of questions about the handouts, but again, the handouts were not part of the ordinance. We'll work with them on those. The council will have a special meeting next week on April 20th, where they're going over their goals and objectives and continuing discussion of the next fiscal 22 budget. They'll have a regular meeting on April 27th, in which they'll entertain the reading of the ordinance regarding the vacation of the Old Bond right away regarding from the Birdie Lane plat. And then they will have another work session on May 4th. On the commission, our next meeting is May 6th. Meetings for the month of May are 6th and the 20th, and then in June it's the 3rd and the 17th. So just keep them in mind and in your calendar. Let me know if you have any conflicts as we continue. Regarding city events, the Tax Increment Commission held a meeting on Tuesday, April 13th, and forwarded a recommendation to authorize or to support an amendment to the current TIF for the Olive Crossing development. And that amendment is essentially acknowledged that a residential component would be added and then adjusted some of the TIF numbers, except for the end date, because the TIF had already started. I believe we're in the second year of the TIF or so. Of course, there was an election early this April in which the incumbent, Sidney Clark, was elected to serve a second term. Those election results will be certified at the meeting on April 27th, and along there will be changes, of course, in our council every year. Amongst themselves, they select somebody to serve as mayor for the year. We'll see how that goes, and that always has a possibility of changing. Right now, Mr. Clark or Councilman Clark is the chairman pro tem, but again, that doesn't guarantee on that. And I'll let the council liaison if she wants to address anything specific on that. The council is also beginning to conduct their meetings live. I've been asked to reach out to our commission members and discuss the possibility of going into meetings where the commission or the board wouldn't meet live and in person, but would have limited public attendance. So I'll be sending out an email on that. A lot of that will depend on how on your comfort level, whether you've been vaccinated as of yet or not, and then we'll work through a process and establish a schedule. On April 22nd, we do have a scheduled Board of Adjustment meeting. This is regarding that retaining wall along the eastern edge of the roadway that would serve Birdie Lane. And the purpose, because of this wall, is somewhere, back in the 80s or 90s, a variance was granted for a garage on the adjacent property to be built right on the property line. And this has kind of posed a conflict on how to best grade to accommodate that variance that was granted then. Or at least that is some of the thought process they're looking at. Public Works, Dealman Road, they've been paving today and will continue tomorrow. The segment between Olive all the way to Crosswinds. They milled that on Monday, and we're paving today, and we'll should be wrapping up by tomorrow. There'll be no striping. I'm not sure when the striping would occur. Don't forget this night, I think next week or this week, is large bulk collection. So if you have any large items, you can place those along the curb on your regular pickup day. Those items are picked up for free. Parks and Recreation, May 1st, Olive and Bloom is going to have Ask a Master Gardener at various parks in our community. I know at the community center, Stacy Park are for sure. They're also taking in registrations for summer camps. Regarding my department, the senior planner position, we interviewed 2 candidates, and we're extending an offer to one of the candidates, and hopefully by May we'll be up and running full steam in there. And I apologize on some of the items I missed on the reports. It's a busy time, but that's good. So it's never a dull day. On development projects, we continue to work with the GRG Trail. They were awarded where the city was awarded as part of the GRG team, a grant for the construction of the trail segment from Dealman Road all the way to Warson Park and Warson Road. That isn't being, the construction is going to be kind of incorporated into the construction of the community center. So the funding for that has been secured, and they're down to finalizing the final construction details and plans. Olive Crossing, as you heard, the TIF amendment was approved. The developer has submitted the stormwater protection plans and anticipates to start the piping of the channel that's right off of Price, hopefully within the next 60 days. And then Ameren will be also coming in to begin the burial of the overhead electricals that I think is going to be around June. And then with the site grading starting shortly thereafter. In this amendment of the TIF, the council is putting some specific dates and timelines to help facilitate the schedule on the construction and moving. To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing in terms that is limiting or stopping the construction. It's just we want to make sure we have some dates to kind of put pressure to make sure activity is moving through. Plant Haven Commercial Center, that continues. They're working on the foundation. I know they picked up the MSD permits and starting work for that aspect of it. I didn't see them out this week, but we're following through to see if there's been any issues. The city center, which is the Oliver, it's looking pretty neat. That foundation's been was poured last Friday, and they're continuing the pours on that. So if you get a chance, it's pretty neat to see how close it's going to be to Olive, and that's going to make a major difference in terms of that streetscape. Easy Storage, again, that's moving slowly, but they're working with the administrative staff and the city attorney regarding to some property assessment issues that they were having. I think those have been resolved, and I think the council's putting together a developer's agreement with them. And again, within that agreement, they'll have specific days to start construction. But Firestone, like you heard, hopefully the closing will be happening soon. And there, we've received the building plans and have those reviewed and ready for permit issuance, but they still got to go through that demo process. So we're trying to facilitate it on our end as best as we can. The holdup's been more whether it's the owner or the purchaser and them getting their issues resolved. I think that kind of covers everything right there. I appreciate everybody's time. I know it's late. Be glad to answer any quick questions.
Anybody have any questions? I do not. Carlos, you did a great job as usual. Missy.
All right, thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and my planning and community design commissioners. Carlos always does a good job. I really don't have much to add to that. It is my understanding that Sydney Clark will be the mayor that we appoint, and we will continue to move forward with some good activity. You got 5 developments you're working on. You know, during the pandemic, we've been blessed. So we're looking forward to keeping you guys busy. That's all.
Thanks, Bessie. Appreciate it. Anybody else on the commission have anything they want to report? Being none, I guess we'll adjourn this meeting at 10:08. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Everybody. Have a good week.
Be safe.
There was some orders regarding jackets or hoodies with the City of Olivet logo. I think Mr. Lewis, Mr. Spiegelglass, Mr. Jergel, I have yours here. Carol, I have yours here. And there is still an opportunity if you didn't order one to get that information to us. So Jody, I'm not sure if you had had saw that email that went out or not. So let me know.
Mine at City Hall
Will
too?
do.
It could be. I'm not sure
Okay.
how they were.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jody, go look and get one.
Yeah, they're pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yours is at City Hall.
Fix Hilltop and Olive. It's horrible. Getting out of here in the morning.
All right, we'll adjourn. 10:09. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.